Hello, Brian. Hello, everyone. We are live. Brian's like unwrapping something. Well, that's the first sound people heard was your
I
unwrapping.
already I already ate dinner and I can't disappoint, so I'm having a little dessert.
Oh my God. I actually ran out to get a Red Bull for tonight's show. But, when you get last minute Red Bull, you have to pay a premium, I guess, because normally I get it in a big pack, but I just went to the local store here. So the only one that was like a reasonable price was because it's the summertime, we lost a lot of patrons over the last couple of months. So I can't pay for like full price Red Bull. So I got this like weird version, the blue edition that was on sale. I'm a little nervous. I hope it's not terrible.
What's different about the blue
It
edition?
says blueberry.
So it
But
just tastes like blueberry.
so why do they call it the blue edition? It seems like a little extra. I mean,
Hmm.
but I don't want blueberry drink. When you drink a Red Bull, it's not for the taste and the enjoyment. It's to get you through a podcast. I thought that's the point.
I think maybe you should reach out to them and see if they'll sponsor. That would
We do need a sponsor.
so that would kill two birds with one stone.
One store.
Oh, that's rude.
Want to start the show? We got Dave in the chat. Jade, I think, is here. Jade's gonna join us. If you're listening, Jade, join anytime, but mute your microphone, please.
And your dog.
No. Matilda. I want to see Matilda.
No, but you can see Matilda without hearing Matilda.
Well, it depends what kinds of sounds she's making. She's making like a cute little whimper. I'm all for that. But I guess a loud bark. No one wants to hear this. Are you paying attention to the Sharks Golden Knights?
I actually went to like stream it and then forgot to hit play, so I don't know what's happening.
The second period's over and it's 1-1. So it's gonna go right down to the wire. And it's like a crazy outshooting game. Like Vegas has taken so many more shots than the
Hey,
Sharks.
Hey.
Hey, Jade.
How's it going? Hey, Brian.
Brian, Jade said hi to you.
Why can't I hear her?
You can't hear her?
Brian,
Oh, not this
Brian.
again.
Brian.
No, this is like I was having a hangout with other people. Sorry, you weren't invited. It
Wait,
was
so-
a work thing.
One second. Before you tell this story, Dave in the chat, do you hear Jade? Let us know. Brian, do you want to like close and reopen or something?
This is like a known issue. Okay, here I go.
Okay, bye. Man, maybe we should pay for software. Okay, yeah, Dave, that's the same as me. We can't see Jade. Are we gonna see?
Oh, yeah. I don't have my camera turned on because I'm really gross and in bed and on my phone. And it just felt like too much for tonight.
That's fine. The only thing is that I was thinking we could do some sort of hand gesture.
Now I
for
can't
when-
hear Elon.
You can't hear me for real?
Oh no.
Ah.
This is a take two situation just waiting.
No,
to
I
happen.
got it. I have plans. I was hoping to start even early.
This is the thing. I told you I can't hear you.
Oh yeah.
But when
Why am I
people
talking?
join a call midway for whatever reason, this happens.
All right,
like
well-
two people can hear the person, but one can't. I'm restarting again.
Okay, Dave could hear everyone. Dave's the Bran Stark. He knows all. Hi, Ryan. Jade, is there some sort of like thing in here where you could like raise your hand or something, like some sort of I feel like there is something like in the chat. Can you write something in the chat? The chat that's like if you click on the top left and then you just like type something.
I'm on my phone and
I see.
I have to be if you want me to use the headphones because I don't have computer compatible headphones with me.
I see.
I can hear you both, by the way. Jade, we need
Yay.
to send you some equipment, it sounds like.
Thanks, Chris.
You're on the show. You're on if you're on like twice a year, I think that's enough for us to justify.
Wait, so what does Jade need? What are we sending her? Headphones?
Some computer equipment so that she can podcast quasi.
I'd be down to send Jade headphones and or a mic. Probably not a computer. That's a bit much.
That's when I become like a super patron.
Yeah, that's the $1,000 a month patron level, and we send you a computer.
Nobody signed up for it this year.
Okay, well, we'll deal with how to interruption. See, it's already happened. Yeah, we'll deal with interruptions when they happen. We'll figure out a way. Maybe Jade will. I won't talk, and then it'll be one less person. Jade, do you want to like make takes during the actual show before we get to you guys? Or
No, you guys do your thing, and I'll just listen and also watch the third period of this game.
okay, maybe like in the chat room if you want to say something, or I don't know, if you have some way to communicate with us, let us know.
I think we're good to. In IMHO. I
Yes.
think let's listen to what Jade wants, and
Thanks,
it's also what I want. I think it'll be smoother. So, and that'll help us get to the cuppies quickly enough.
Okay, this blue drink is fine. I don't know why they can't just make all the Red Bull. Anyway, okay. I should just buy a big batch of it. All right, let's start the show. We're gonna start.
All right, I'm
You
gonna
should
mute
brew
myself.
your own.
Okay, bye, Jade.
Red Bull Shine.
I wonder how hard it is to make.
Make
There's
it
so
in your
many.
bathtub.
Honestly, there's so many ingredients. I feel like it's gonna cost me a lot of money.
It might be cheaper in the long run.
I might kill myself by mistake with all these weird chemicals.
We'll go out a hero.
Yeah, I guess so. I'll wear my
You'll
cupful
become an
champion.
angel, and then you'll say Red Bull gives you wings.
If I ever, yeah, okay, that was good. We really should get them to sponsor us. Let's start. Okay. Yes! Welcome everybody to our first summer series edition of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the best fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys on Eric Karlsson and their keeper pools. I'm your host, Elon Dubrowski, and with me, as always, is the guy who's probably going to correct me for having just said summer series edition, Brian Com.
You know, I thought about it and I was like, no, I'm just going to come in happy and enthusiastic. So here I am. It is so good, Elon, to be with you once again. And dear listener, to be with you once again. We've missed you. It's been 2 weeks, and we are so happy to be here. We're going to break down what we've seen in the playoff series so far. And we've got the Cuppies, the annual award ceremony for all Cupful participants that non-Cupful participants will hopefully find interesting too. Also, Elon, I feel like I'll just put this out there. If anyone's listening for the first time, we have like our content for today. If you're not like hardcore into fantasy, it might still work very well for you. Like we're going to, of course, add our fantasy slant, but there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about in this series we've seen that if you're not into fantasy hockey, I think you'll still find useful to know for those water cooler chats.
I don't know who you're marketing to, because like the person downloaded a fantasy hockey podcast, so I guess they were okay with fantasy hockey talk. But maybe Brian
doing like tweeting out and saying, "Hey, we just released an episode. If you've never listened before, check it out."
Okay, well, first let's see how this episode goes, and we'll go from there. But I think we're gonna have a good one. It's been kind of interesting in the NHL over the last couple of weeks since we last talked. A few surprises, so we'll get to all of that. Of course, let's mention that we are presented by DobberHockey.com, top fantasy hockey website out there. They're going to be with you all throughout the playoffs, all throughout the summer, with articles, daily ramblings, takes. Like if you want to be good at fantasy hockey, you really got to be in the know all year long. You can't take an off season and expect to come in next year ready to go. So always check out keepingkarlsson.com, but also check out dobberhockey.com, which is what I was talking about. Brian, all right, it's been a couple weeks. Got to get back into the groove here. Let's start by talking about one more thing, actually, Brian, that I wanted to mention before we get into our hockey talk. We're doing something fun with the patrons. Actually, let me just, I'll talk about the brackets thing when we get to the Cuppies. How about that? And then it'll be a smoother transition. Let me just...
I don't know. It'd be good for you to drop it at the start so people can start thinking. Put it out there. Just put it out there quickly.
It's already been so long.
Just do it real quick.
No, it's a whole long thing.
Just do it real quick and tell you more about it later.
Okay, fine. Okay, sorry everybody. Sorry everyone live. Okay.
What would you do without me?
Well, I would have just done what I wanted to do. Okay. One other thing I'll mention super quickly before we get to our content. We are going to be having a patron episode soon where we're going to be doing a bracket of Cupful rule change ideas. And if that was all like gobbledygook, what you heard, basically, we'll get to it later. But we have a Keeping Karlsson Fantasy League for the patrons, and we want your suggestions for potential rule changes that we'll make. So you can either send those directly to John Reed on Facebook or send an email to kktakes@gmail.com. Like I said, I'll mention this more later, but I just wanted to throw that out there. We're looking for your suggestions for Cupful rule changes. But Brian, let's talk about the playoffs so far. Holy upsets. Such a crazy first round so far. There's still a couple series left to go. The Leafs and Bruins are going to Game 7. We found that out this afternoon. The The Sharks and the Golden Knights might be done by the time we're done recording this podcast. It's 1-1. The third period just started in Game 6. But yeah, there's some series that are over. And I feel like in this show, we could talk about, like, there are some fantasy implications maybe, or maybe, Brian, you could be a wet blanket when I talk about a player who's done really well in the playoffs and ask you, does this mean this player is going to be better next year? And you'll say, small sample size, don't even worry about it. But also, it'll just be fun to talk through some of these upsets. And I don't know, like, it's just been so crazy. Like, all of the talk, like with Tampa, like losing in a sweep, it was like insane. Pittsburgh, like, I feel like last episode, all of our predictions were pretty much wrong. Though I will say that I did say on the show, you could go find the tape. I said that if there's going to be one upset next round, I said that I think it would be Colorado beating Calgary. And my reasoning was that I felt like they both have similarly like top heavy forward cores, but Colorado has the edge in net because Grubauer had been doing so well. Mike Smith is Mike Smith. So, Brian, do I get any credit for this, even though, like, part of my reasoning was that Mike Smith would be Calgary's downfall, but he turned out to be just fine. He put up a .917 save percentage over the 5 games. It wasn't his fault that they lost. It was that Calgary couldn't score goals. Also, all my other calls were wrong. Like, I thought Tampa Bay would go forward. I thought that Pittsburgh would go forward. So can I really take credit? I want to take credit for this Colorado call. I feel like it was smart, but I feel like it's drowned out by so much noise of all the other things I got wrong.
I want to zoom back out first and just talk about all the upsets that we are going to talk about on the show tonight and how they've all happened. And like, so this interesting thing that's happened with things not going as expected in the postseason to the degree that they have or haven't this year. Like psychologically, it seems like it's been interesting to watch how hockey fans are taking this, if Twitter is a gauge, and also like gauge myself when I'm watching the games. I actually found myself feeling this weird feeling that I can best equate to like frustration, not actually, but like there was like this discomfort when all these first round series started not panning out the way I and many others would have expected them to. It was almost like situation A was supposed to happen, but B is happening. And if I was so sure about A happening, then I must have been really wrong somewhere in all that I saw and thought about and researched over and poured over numbers for the last 8 months and like several seasons before this one, watching and following hockey and numbers. It was like throwing my whole hockey worldview upside down to the point that it was like, what's the point here? Why should I watch? Why do I even bother?
Wow. This has not been a good couple weeks for you.
Like, this was just a momentary thing. Like, do you identify with this at all, Elon? Like, was there any discomfort for you seeing this happen?
I don't know. Not really. Like, playoffs are always so weird. Like, that's why when we filled out our box pools last week and you took Tampa Bay players, and I thought to myself, everyone's going to take Tampa Bay players. Let me take some other players. Maybe that'll give me a better chance to win, because the playoffs are always so weird. Usually the team that's favored doesn't go on to win the cup. There's so much parity in the league. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, it is definitely surprising how badly Tampa lost, but overall, like, it doesn't bother. Like, what bothered me a lot more was how all of our goalie predictions for the regular season were wrong. Like, how everything went totally upside down. Though, as I say that, we weren't actually that bad. I looked at our Schmore goalies board, and actually, in the end, it turned out not so bad. Like, we had Sergei Bobrovsky in the top tier, and that looked really dumb for a while. But at the end of the season, he was great. He was great in the playoffs. I guess our biggest miss was Robin Leonard. We had him, way down, and now he's a Vezina Trophy nominee. But anyways, I digress. I found that more annoying because the regular season is the thing that I feel like is a little bit more predictable, and that's what we do our podcast about, to help people win their fantasy leagues, which happen over the regular season. I'm surprised that the playoffs hit you so hard. Like, it's surprising, but it didn't annoy me. If anything, I thought it was kind of fun to see all this wacky stuff happening. I think there's going to be some really fun hockey. There's still great teams going into round 2. We'll talk about Columbus in a little bit. I think this team is totally a contender at this point.
So don't get me wrong, like, I am loving the playoffs and having a great time. There's just like this feeling in the pit of my stomach. And I think part of it is that, seeing teams like Tampa and Pittsburgh just roll over meant that I was going to be deprived of watching these teams. Like, I was really excited to see them put together a playoff run and what that looks like. And I guess I'll just have to adjust to different teams being the ones that I get invested in entertainment wise. Like, I know I'm not the only one feeling this way, but I think like what you said is true, where it's a very, like, the league has great parity, and we know the playoffs can be chaotic, and there's nothing else to do but embrace it. And even though, like, you make all your logical predictions, and then like watching night after night, it's like, you were wrong. It's definitely not something I'm stewing over. Like, that is just, okay. I'm keeping that feeling to the side, and I'm still enjoying the chaos and fun that has been just such an exciting first round of the playoffs. It's also going to make things really interesting next year. Like the fact that Columbus moved on to the second round, I think sets us up for such an entertaining trade deadline next season with what Jarmo Kekalainen did and going all in on a team that wasn't even necessarily going to qualify for the playoffs and might not have if it weren't for Bobrovsky's heroics down the stretch and a Montreal loss or two. That's the only way that Columbus actually ended up having the opportunity to sweep Tampa, let alone doing it. Anyway, so many great things happening in this first round. Elon, you wanted to talk about Calgary, Colorado first? You get credit. I'll give you credit. What?
Sorry. I want to respond. You're saying so many things. I want to respond to them. They're so funny. Can you go back just a point, though, so that I can sort of Elon, I don't know, can you just go back one sentence, like what Jarmo Kekalainen did or something?
Oh, man, that was far back. Okay.
All right. So just something. Give me something. Sorry.
I
was putting my hand up. Do you not look at the video? Don't we have this hand system?
Sorry, I wasn't looking at it this time.
Don't you have the whole setup where you have
I do. I covered it by accident. Sorry.
Oh, okay, I had my hand the whole time a loser.
I got you.
Okay.
Okay, I'll try and then I'll give you a point and you can see if it works when you edit.
Okay.
But these first round series have been so amazing, and I can't wait to see what happened next. What did you want to talk about first again, Elon?
What do you mean? But I didn't say on the show that I want to talk. What
you did. You did. You started talking about. You asked me about Calgary.
Oh, I see. All right. Well, yeah. My initial question was about the.
Calgary. Say it again.
Well, yeah, my initial question to you before you got into all of that was, can I take credit for predicting Colorado beating the Calgary Flames? It is kind of funny how you're saying you were watching and you were thinking to yourself, oh, I was wrong about this, I was wrong about that. If anything, I would have thought you'd be saying that to yourself after your couple non-first round playoff making. But okay, sorry. I like to be rude. It's kind of fun. But okay, let's get into it. So, Brian, what do you think about?
just so everybody knows, I was ready to keep moving through the show, and Elon stopped the show and made me go back and say a couple lines again so that he could get that dig in. We were ready to fly. That was not necessary.
No, I had something else in my head and I actually forgot. And so that was the one thing that came to me. Brian, okay, let's go. Tell me if I could take credit and feel smart about predicting Colorado. I also kind of did tell you, I don't know if it was on a show or just in my head. I feel like we had a conversation somewhere where I said I thought Dallas was going to put up a really strong fight against Nashville, and you sort of swatted me away with that. And that's definitely happened so far. Those are the things I want to take credit for. But again, I've gotten so many other things wrong that I feel like I just need to be quiet right now and let you talk.
About what?
About whatever you have next prepared to discuss on the show.
Okay, well, you wanted to talk about Calgary, Colorado? What team should I start with?
That one.
Colorado. Where are you right now? What are you doing?
Go. I was just making chit chat. Yeah, go into what you were going to say.
Okay, I'll start with Colorado. They won. That was great. And they won, Elon. I don't know. I'll still give you credit for calling it as a possibility. It would have taken a little more. My point to you when you said Calgary was going to lose because Mike Smith stinks, my counterpoint was that, well, Mike Smith and David Riddick have stunk for large parts of the season, and Calgary has survived well enough to be the top seed in the West and the next best team after Tampa in the NHL after the regular season. And so I think you still get some credit for at least thinking they were vulnerable. I think a lot of people agreed they were vulnerable. And one element that really had to go in Colorado's favor was they needed to keep getting their goaltending. And that's exactly what happened. Philip Grubauer, rock solid. He is now up to a .958 save percentage in his last 20 games. He's got a 13-3-2 record since early February. So 18 starts in that stretch. 17 of them have been quality starts, and the one that wasn't was actually very close to being a quality start. So yeah, I bet Colorado is really happy with his performance and thanking him that Grubauer has made it a whole lot easier for them to justify moving on from Varlamov. They finally should have some clarity on their goaltending situation, which we thought they'd have within a couple weeks or a couple months of the season. And it took us essentially to this point to know.
Yeah, it's very interesting now because we're gonna have to discuss over the summer like where to rank Grubauer as far as goalies go for fantasy next year. And we saw how hard it is to predict goalies, but right now he's been like the top goalie in fantasy, just like you said. And of course, as expected, the Avalanche won not only on the back of Grubauer, but on the back of their amazing big guns. Nathan MacKinnon, 8 points in 4 games after the game 1 shutout loss. So no points for anyone in the first game. And then MacKinnon was insane. Ranson had 9 points in those next 4 games. Tyson Barrie had 5 points. Grubauer, like you said, 939 save percentage over the 5 game series, 1.9 goals against average. So unbelievable. Obviously, the story is not over yet about this team, but I do have a couple questions to ask you about going into next season. Like, I wonder, do you think that this win helps these players' stocks go up? Because believe it or not, I was kind of thinking they were a little down. So you could maybe just tell me if I was dumb, but like Nathan MacKinnon ended the season with a measly 23 points in his last 23 games, which I know you're going to say 23 points in 23 games. That's amazing, but that's actually pretty far off from his overall pace, which was like a 100-point pace on the season. Rantanen ended with only 11 points in his last 15 games when he was well above a point per game pace all throughout the season. So maybe if Colorado had not made the playoffs, this might have bumped down these two players' draft stocks going to next year. Obviously, when I say bumped down, I mean like later in the first round than they would normally go. But now it just seems like once again, everyone is going to go into next year, or at least obviously the story, like I said, still has to finish with this playoff run. But yeah, it seems now like MacKinnon and Ranson both are like guys you could be super happy to grab Nathan MacKinnon like second or third overall in the draft and Ranson in just a few picks later. And then yeah, Grubauer is the really interesting one. Like I know it's really hard to talk about right now, but do you think like at this point, is he like a top 10 goalie to be drafted next season? Like he's going to be the clear starting goalie. He's not going to be a tandem guy next year because they're not going to re-sign Varlamov. I'm almost positive. Like Grubauer is clearly the starter. Colorado seems like a good team. They should only get better. Like Cal Makar will be a year older. We'll talk about him in a second. So yeah, what are your thoughts on these forwards and more interestingly, Grubauer?
The forwards I have no concerns about. There was a lot of talk at the end of the series about how Nathan MacKinnon has established himself as a McDavid-like presence on the ice, and it's hard to argue when you look at his numbers. It's definitely time he has mentioned. I mean, we mention him in the same breath as the highest scorers in the league, like McDavid and Crosby, and like he's still like, I feel like the difference between him and them is he didn't come up with like a 6-year lead up to his draft date, and he can't go back and change that, but he can show us just how dominant he is on the ice now. So you've got to like him to be. I think that Elon, there's no way he should go worse than third in a fantasy draft. I guess, Kucherov and McDavid are the other big competitors for him. And I guess you can count Crosby in there too, if you'd like, but I wouldn't.
Maybe like Brent Burns if you're in a bangers league and defense are rare. But okay, but that's getting really into the weeds. But yeah, MacKinnon's a top guy for sure.
Yeah, I was talking forwards for sure. And then as for Grubauer, you're asking if he's going to be a top 10 goalie to be drafted next year. And I feel like there isn't even a top 10 of goalies. Like of course we're going to do our smart goalies board in the off season, but when we do, I feel like we're going to have 3 or 4 goalies that you probably want most. And then this giant pile of goalies who could either be amazing or garbage. And Grubauer is going to be in that latter group. Not at all to say he's going to be garbage, but just to say you are throwing darts for goalies. And we all understand that's the case. So I don't even know what the point is in having a top 10. You're going to have your top tier, and then you're going to have that giant pile, and then you're going to have the guys you should probably avoid.
So then I guess draft strategies for next year are going to be a lot along the lines. If it's a snake draft, then you have your goalie tiers and you have your big pile. And then as the pile starts to dwindle, that's when you start drafting your goalies. No reason to grab out of the pile first. But okay, we'll get to that later. Well, and obviously there's still a whole playoff round to go. Maybe 2, maybe 3. Colorado's going to play the winner of Sharks Golden Knights, which we might find out before the end of this night. One last bit of Avs talk for this week. What are your thoughts on Cal Makar? He joined the lineup in Game 3, scored a goal in that game. Pretty nice first game for a team as a defenseman, especially. Then he also picked up an assist in Game 5, so that's 2 points in 3 games on the series. He was seeing around 20 minutes of ice time in his last couple of games, as well as power play 2 deployment, so not so bad. And this guy, Cal Makar, he put up 49 points in 41 games for UMass in the NCAA this season. He's a former 4th overall pick, so this guy has a high pedigree. I remember all the talk with Cam Robinson and those prospect guys were saying the thing with Cal Makar is he was so great coming up to when he got drafted, but they're saying he's never played against tough competition, so we don't really know. So he had another good game this year. I don't know if you would consider UMass in the NCAA like the top competition, but he's with the team now, and we've been getting questions. We got a question on Twitter from David Lemaire asking about Chicago's Eric Gustafsson, and then he asked if Gustafsson is better than Tyson Barrie for next season due to the, and then this is a quote, apparent rise of Cal Makar. So at least David was concerned that maybe Makar could be someone who could challenge Barry as soon as next year for top power play deployment. Do you have any thoughts right now on like how good is Kyle Makar? Is he going to be the Rasmus Dahlin to Rasmus Ristolainen and bump Barry before next year's out and be a guy you definitely want to have on your fantasy team?
I'm not counting on it. I think if you're looking at Makar impacting one player's value, it's probably Samuel Girard more than anything, right? Because we've talked about Girard for a long time as being plan B for the Avs if Barry moves on or isn't working out and they want to try and give somebody else the role. But now you wonder if Makar is going to be that guy. I'm still not sure he is, right? Like, we can't get overly excited. What we do know is that Colorado is blessed with potentially 3 quality offensive defensemen, which could work out really well for them. So we'll keep an eye on Makar's fantasy value, but right now I wouldn't say it's approaching Rasmus Dahlin's.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's fair. But yeah, it's something. It'll be fun to watch the rest of the playoffs. That's a player that I'm going to be watching. I'll be curious to see how he does for the rest of Colorado's run. And they're going to be a really fun team to cheer for. Another reason to be excited about Grubauer, Colorado. They didn't end up with the first overall pick as they could have, having Ottawa's pick. They are going to get 4th. So it looks like they're going to have a really nice prospect pipeline coming up. So what the heck happened to the Flames? Let's talk about them quickly. Gaudreau had 1 assist in 5 games. Monahan had a couple points. Elias Lindholm a couple points. Matthew Tkachuk had 2 goals and an assist. So a decent 3 points in 5 games, I guess. The big guns, they were just nowhere to be seen. And I'm assuming this won't dissuade you from Gaudreau and Monahan, like after their career seasons. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, even though they had this disappointing playoffs, maybe you could just blame that on like, maybe they didn't even play badly. It's like Grubauer was just so amazing. Like, no one could put the puck by him. I'm going to tell you though, one player that really left a bad taste in my mouth at the end of the season, Elias Lindholm. He only had 10 points in his final 22 regular season games. And then, like I said, like this 2 points in 5 playoff games. He ended the season with 76 points. Like, I would be very nervous about drafting him as a 70+ point guy for next season. Like, I don't like these players who show me that they can go cold for so long. Like, if I'm going to be drafting someone really high, I want to see a lot more consistency, especially since Lindholm wasn't a huge superstar before the season, right? Like, he had this amazing run. He looked amazing, but now he's been cold for so long. So yeah, bad taste in my mouth. I don't know how much you could say about him at this point, but he's someone that I'm less excited about drafting now because of this playoff performance and the end of the season. So you could tell me that maybe I'm just being dissuaded too easily.
I don't know that you are. I mean, we've chronicled Lindholm's struggles for the last several weeks and like felt like it bled into months. And it wasn't great. Like, there's not much to say. And you wonder if he is guaranteed, like if he still wasn't producing in that top line spot, does he get it? Like, we could have figured he'd be the heir apparent, when we were heading into March or mid-February even. But now you wonder if the Flames look for somebody else to go up into that spot. I doubt it. I still expect Lindholm to start the season there and could see great success. But it at least throws things into question, right? It's not automatic. Someone else who wasn't automatic at all was Johnny Gaudreau, right? And as Johnny Gaudreau goes, so will Elias Lindholm. And Gaudreau himself just had 1 point over the 5-game series. He was getting some shots off. He had 5, 8, 10, 12, 16 shots over the 5 games, which is about right for him. It would have been lovely to see him take a few more shots, although his shot counts did suffer towards the end of the season. He had a lot of 1 and 2 shot games over his last 10, which was really concerning at the time. And we know he went quiet for a certain period. So you wonder what the Flames are going to do to adjust to get this top line going. And it is, whoa, did you hear that?
No.
Okay, great. Just a loud motorcycle. Okay. And we're spending time talking about the Calgary offense and how it broke down instead of Mike Smith. And it really is crazy that Mike Smith wasn't the reason the Flames lost. Instead, it really was. They were the second highest scoring team in the regular season. They scored only 11 times in 5 games. But we're not just going to gloss right past Mike Smith. There's 2 points I want to make about him first before beating up on the offense just a little bit more. First, Elon, he had a .917 save percentage in the playoffs. It looks like something an average, steady goalie would give you, but that's not what Smith offered. He had 3 good to excellent games and 2 stinkers where he didn't really get his team much of a chance to win by posting a save percentage below 900 in each of those. So he was up and down, which isn't helpful. But even less helpful than that was the Calgary team defense. The Calgary defense was so bad that they legitimately ranked last amongst all playoff teams this season in expected goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, which means that Mike Smith actually played well above his expected save percentage for the series on the whole, which makes it even sadder that when Smith finally did show up, the rest of the Flames went missing on defense and offense. I mentioned they were last in expected goals against per 60, so they gave up the most expected goals against at even strength at 5-on-5. They were 12th in expected goals for per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, shooting just above 3% too. So you take the amount of expected goals that they could have been expected to earn and then pour on some rough shooting luck on top of that, and they just weren't there. So really rough playoff showing for Calgary. And you wonder, after 2 years of terrible playoff disappointment, what kind of chip they'll be carrying on their shoulder next season as they, well, I would still expect them to qualify for the playoffs next year, but we'll see what adjustments they try and make.
Yeah, well, definitely in nets, there's going to probably be an adjustment. Mike Smith, I believe, is a free agent at the end of this season. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens over the summer. Yeah, disappointment for the Calgary Flames. I saw a tweet that now this decade ends with the Edmonton Oilers winning more playoff series than the Calgary Flames. So that just goes to show how bad of a decade it has been for these Western Canadian teams. Of course, the biggest upset in the playoffs, and we discussed a bit before, maybe the biggest upset in NHL history. I don't know where this is going to end up ranking, but the Columbus Blue Jackets not only beating but sweeping Tampa Bay. Like just in general, like on a scale of 1 to 10, like how much did this surprise you? Is this a full-on 10 out of 10 surprise?
Yeah, 20.
20 out of 10. Okay, so do you think, I guess the one question that comes to mind about this is Andrei Vasilevskiy. He stunk, 856 save percentage in 4 games, so he didn't show up for this series like Tampa needed him to, clearly. Maybe they didn't think that they would need him to show up as much as they turned out to need him. Do you think this will hurt his draft stock going into next season? I feel like a lot of people assume Andrei Vasilevskiy is the top goalie to own in fantasy right now. That was definitely the opinion. I think he's probably going to win the Vezina Trophy. And yeah, but going into next year, when we did our Schmore Goalies board going into this season, we actually put Vasilevskiy in the second tier, and we said we know he's on a great team. We know that he has the pedigree to be a good goalie, but we've never seen him put up a full consistent season. And then this season, I guess he made us look dumb. He had a great season pretty much all year long, but then he blew it in the playoffs. You're still going to have him in the top tier for next year, right? But it's only 4 games, so I don't know. What's your takeaway on Vasilevskiy after this poor showing?
Well, that's it. He had a bad 4 games. And there's some apologists for Vasilevskiy might say that Victor Hedman played injured for the first 2 games and then didn't play at all for the next 2 games. And that threw Tampa's defensive plan for a loop and affected Andrei Vasilevskiy. But even with that extenuating circumstance, the Lightning still were allowing the lowest expected goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5 of all playoff teams. And Vasilevskiy simply played further below his expected save percentage than any other goalie in the playoffs so far. So you can still pin a lot of the goals against on Vasilevskiy, just not being up to snuff. He really let his team down here. But then you also have to remember, outside of this 4-game sample, he was really good for almost the entire 82 games before these 4 games. Of course, for goalies, that can mean very little carrying over to the next season, but it's something. So as long as Vasilevskiy remains Tampa's starter, and he's going to, right? Barring something insane in the offseason, Vasilevskiy is probably one of those 3 or 4 goalies that I mentioned in our Grubauer chat that you can justify putting a step above the pile and make a point to try and grab in next year's drafts if a goalie-centric strategy is something that's important to you.
Right, for sure. And also, I want to give something else to Vasilevskiy. This Columbus team is pretty stacked. When everyone's clicking, when they made these trades at the trade deadline, and then it looked like this team is stacked, but then they didn't play so well at the start. Then they had this great run at the end of the year. But take a look at this team. All the following players put up 4 or more points in this 4-game series. So that's over a point per game or higher. Matt Duchene, 7 points. Panarin, 5. Werenski, 5. Atkinson, 5. Bjorkstrand kept up his hot streak, 4 points in 4 games. Seth Jones had 4 points, and that still leaves Dubois, Josh Anderson, Boone Jenner, Nick Foligno. Ryan Dzingel was pointless. He's supposed to be a good player. David Savard played big minutes on D. This is a pretty decent team. To me, they don't actually strike me like an 8th place team when you look at this lineup. This is a team that we all expected going into the season was going to be better. We didn't think this was going to be a last day of the season making the playoffs type of team. And that doesn't even include Mr. Sergei Bobrovsky, who continued his hot run for the end of the year. He had a 932 save percentage over the 4 games, finally shaking that playoff choker label. So I feel like this Columbus team is like really good. Like I could definitely see them going to the finals at this point, maybe taking this thing. I feel like they have just as good a chance as anyone else. Like they're going to play the winner, I believe, of Toronto and Boston. And I feel like that series, I don't know, kind of a coin flip at this point to me. Like I'm really high on Columbus, and I feel like maybe we were too low on them. Like we just looked at how amazing Tampa season was, but this Columbus team is no joke.
Okay, so I'm actually not going to agree with you here. I know you're really high on Columbus, and yeah, they do have some good name value up front with Duchesne and Atkinson and Panarin, but I'm actually not going to give a whole lot of credit to Columbus's offense in their sweep of Tampa. Would you believe, Elon, that Columbus was actually the least threatening team at 5-on-5 offensively out of all playoff teams so far this year? And that's also stays the same on the power play. They have the lowest expected goals for rates at 5-on-5, again, of all playoff teams. So they have not presented themselves as a very dangerous team for scoring goals. They have picked up the 4th highest 5-on-5 shooting percentage, though, and that's helped them somewhat. But what's really helped them, and the reason Columbus is moving on to round 2, is their defense. Their defense suffocated the best offense in the league in the postseason. That's no small feat. And you look at how few expected goals against they were allowing, and it was minuscule, right? They were crushing it. So for that reason, Columbus made it to the next round. It's not at all because of their offense. Their offense just got the job done, but their defense is where things really stood out.
Okay, I mean, again, I did list 6 players who were above a point per game, but okay, if I to tease this apart for the lay person, Brian, obviously I understand, but just to make sure, all of the listeners understand, when you say this expected goals things, you're like not counting how many goals they actually scored. You're saying like, according to you looked at the charts and the graphs, and you saw like where the players were taking their shots from and how many shots they were taking, and this team shouldn't have actually scored as many goals as they did. Maybe you're just blaming this on Vasilevsky for like him letting in more goals than should have been expected, which is what you said. So but I mean, because it like just look at the raw numbers, this looks like it was a very high scoring team. They scored a whole bunch of goals, but you're saying that was more to do with Tampa like letting them get easy goals as opposed to them actually being a scary team.
Yeah, I think I'm also saying that, like, don't forget, some of them came with an empty net too. They were ahead in every game, right? So essentially, you did summarize expected goals pretty well, right? It's supposed to account for shot quantity and quality. Throw it all into there's stuff written online. I suggest if you're interested in the stat, you go check it out. You can find it on Natural Stat Trick and at Corsica and at Evolving Hockey. 3 great sources, and I think they each might calculate theirs slightly differently from one another. I know Evolving Hockey and Corsica for sure, and I have to double check on where Natural Stat Trick pulls their expected goals numbers. But essentially, yeah, they're saying what's the threat level of each shot taken, give it a weight, and then add it all up to find out how many goals a team would be expected to score or allow. So Columbus was really great in allowing very few expected goals, but very bad at actually picking up expected goals and coming in with actually super dangerous offensive attempts.
Right. So they didn't get many expected goals. They didn't get a lot of actual goals, which are the ones that count. But that's interesting. I would love to do a summer series episode at some point and actually look into, because you use this stat like so much on the show. I think it would be fun to do an episode where we actually like make sure, like maybe compare expected goals to actual goals and see if they actually correlate as you'd expect them to. So that'll be a fun thing to discuss later on. I'm sure it's good. The other sweep,
so, like it's yeah, okay.
You're saying it's for sure predictive and good, but
I'm saying like a lot of work has been done, and you can find it all on like these were not like randomly developed and whimsical numbers. Like, and I think there's been a lot of review. Like people put out their numbers, they put out their methodology. Everybody critiques it. It's fine tuned and whatever. Like it's not to say it's gospel, right? Like there's a lot we don't know, and this is just a number that takes a shot at estimating the value and expected goals of each shot taken on the ice. But it's not like these are just, random things being thrown out there.
Right. I agree with you. I'm speaking for the listener here, just to make sure that someone's not going to be like 1-star review. These guys say that Columbus wasn't a dangerous team, yet they scored all these goals. So, okay. Other sweep that I want to talk about, by the way, we've got Jade and Lewis here in the call. We're going to get to them soon. We're going to be doing our Kakupi Awards, where they're going to give awards for all of well, actually, I don't even know what the categories are, but it's going to be a fun awards show for our Keeping Karlsson patron fantasy league that we had over the season. You don't have to have been in the league or know anything about it to have fun with these awards. I think this is going to be a really good time. So we'll get to you in a second. Lewis and Jay, thanks so much for joining us. But Brian, we got to talk about the rest of these series. The other sweep was another shocker. The Islanders mopped the floor with the Pittsburgh Penguins, a team both of us thought could go on a decent run. Are you crediting this win more to the Islanders having a great series or the Penguins like totally blowing it?
So looking at their offensive numbers in terms of chances in danger, Pittsburgh and the Islanders were actually very evenly matched, more than a 4-0 sweep would suggest, which means that essentially Pittsburgh and the Islanders were entitled to roughly the same amount of goals, again, going by expected goals. But of course, that's not at all what happened in the series, with the Isles outscoring the Pens 14-6 while dispatching them in a mere 4 games. So yeah, what happened here? Well, for Pittsburgh, first quarter Matt Murray reared his ugly head once again. Remember how rough he was to start the year? Casey DeSmith, we thought he was going to take the job. Matt Murray was worthless. He was being thrown about in trade offers, like in fantasy, left and right, just for peanuts, people trying to get anything back for him. And then Matt Murray took a little vacation while he was injured, came back stronger than ever, put up a crazy second half, and then, reverted to his start of season self. So that did not bode well for Pittsburgh. And for the Islanders, it was the inverse, which is a story that's been the same all year long. Robin Lehner playing outstanding, stealing goals in games all the way through. He played so well that Pittsburgh's actual goals scored were half of their expected goals scored, which is this is at 5-on-5, which takes some really incredible goaltending to be able to do. So I think that was absolutely the difference, as it has been for the Islanders all season long. Robin Lehner. Also a point to make here, it's hard to tell if Matt Murray was bad and the Islanders took advantage, or if Murray was actually okay and the Islanders were fortunate based on his save percentage and the way things go, like just looking at the numbers. But if you watch the games, as I watched a couple of them, I can't say I watched every minute of this series. So if anybody wants to share their insights into the answer to that question, please feel free, just to exactly tease apart why Matt Murray fell below his expected save percentage. Was it a few unlucky bounces, or was he really that awful? I saw a couple awful goals. I saw a couple bad bounces too. So it could also be a little bit of both. But there's no question as to how the Islanders got through the Penguins and into the second round. And it's the same way they were successful all season long, with just incredible, out of their mind goaltending from Robin Lehner.
Yeah, Ryan's saying in the chat room, Islanders built for the playoffs, roll 4 lines, forecheck like hell, and then also get great goaltending from Robin Lehner. So we talked about Grubauer and Bobrovsky putting up really strong save percentages. Lehner blew them out of the water. He had a .956 save percentage in the 4 games. Brian, I feel like next playoffs, I'm just going to predict the teams to win. Any team that has a hot goalie going into the playoffs, I feel like, because all these guys are talking about Bobrovsky, Grubauer, both of these guys weren't great like all season long, but were hot going into the playoffs. Lehner was hot all season long. I feel like maybe that's going to be my criteria next year when predicting these playoff series. Like, which team has a hot goalie lately? Because that seems to be what can turn a series. We were chatting about this on the Facebook group. Brian, like, Robin Lehner is a free agent going into this summer. This Vezina finalist had an amazing season. He's killing in the playoffs. He's only 27 years old. He's not like an old guy. Do you think he's going to get similar to what Bobrovsky will get in the offseason in terms of unrestricted free agent salary? Like, if you were running a team that needs a goalie, like say, San Jose Sharks, even though actually Martin Jones is having a good game today, would you spend big on Robin Lehner if you could, or would he concern you because he's only had this one good season?
So this mistake has been made before, and I'm frantically Googling the career record of Cristobal Huet, as he might be the best example I can come up with on the top of my head as a goalie who had an outstanding year and then came back down to earth after having been given a long-term commitment. I think it was back with Washington. He was traded from Montreal to Washington, or was it vice versa? Oh, gosh. I wish I looked this up beforehand. Anyway, he played really well I think he ended up with Washington. This was in 07-08. He put up a .936 save percentage in 13 games with them to end the regular season. And then they lost in 7 games in the first round that year, the Capitals. He put up a .909, and then he got a really great contract from the Blackhawks to continue his career there as a 33-year-old goalie with not a lot of great hockey under his belt. Like he'd had a good season or two of part-time work going into that, but there wasn't much to go off of. Now, Lehner's a totally different person here, right? Like I'm not going to say it's an analogous situation. And the reason for that is that Lehner has a potentially legit reason to have suddenly found his game and become the goalie that he was indeed projected to be. That's what Lehner has going for him. He has pedigree. And then, of course, there was the story at the start of the season about how he's sorted out mental health issues and has personal life in order. That's going to maybe let him compete in a way that he hasn't been able to compete in a very long time. So I'm very interested to see where the Robin Lehner story goes. I think it would be insane for a team to want to give him the sort of contract that Bobrovsky might command, especially in terms of term. But we've seen NHL organizations desperate for a franchise goalie roll the dice before. I'm not even one who wants to commit a whole lot of payroll, a whole lot of my salary cap space to a goaltender, even if he is proven. So I'm even less willing to do that for a guy who is still a bit of a question mark. So Robin Lehner could very well find a team desperate enough to make a big bet on him, or he might sign another 1 or 2 year deal in the $4 or $5 million range. I think it would be great for everyone. Like I would enjoy seeing him stay with the Islanders. It would be a stretch, though, to say that we can expect him to repeat this season next year. He's had a heck of a season. Unfortunately, it's been so good that setting that as the bar, like the expectation for him would be a little rich.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but I also think he's probably going to sign a long-term deal for big money. Like, it's just been such an amazing season. We'll see how the playoffs end. We'll see if the Capitals, or I guess the Hurricanes, it's possible, blow him up next round. But I don't know. It's just like you said, like a team always seems to do that.
And Ryan in the chat is saying he thinks Lehner will get Koskinen money, which would actually make a lot of sense. If you could give Lehner a Koskinen's contract, I'm into that. If you give Koskinen's contract, if you give Koskinen's contract, though, I am not into that.
Yeah, I feel like that's a bargain. The Oilers might be thinking, maybe we should have waited to the offseason. Maybe we could have signed Robin Lehner or someone else instead of already giving all this money to Koskinen for, 2 years? Anyway, 3 years?
I think it was 3 years,
Oilers.
4.5 each or something.
There's going to be a lot of fun goalies moving around in the offseason. Like we've talked about a couple of Varlamov, like Mike Smith. So yeah, it'll be really fun to, as always, like see where all the goalies shuffle around to. Brian, your BFF, Jordan Eberle, he broke out in this first round series, 6 points, playing with Matt Barzal. He wasn't with Barzal most of the season, but he got to the top line and he clearly did very well. Maybe the two stick together next season and Jordan Eberle becomes like a nice sleeper pick for next year. I'm definitely not telling anyone to reach for Jordan Eberle. But, maybe he still has it in him to be that star player. He's another guy I'm really curious to watch for the rest of the playoffs and see if he can keep this hot streak going. Over on Pittsburgh, I'd actually like to continue a conversation, Brian, that we were having on Facebook about Evgeny Malkin. He had a solid season overall, like really good, 72 points in 68 regular season games, 3 points in 4 playoff games. And that's 3 points in 4 games against Mr. 956 save percentage Robin Lehner. So that's a very impressive stat rate. But once again, he let his owners down. He missed 8 games right during the heart of the fantasy playoffs due to injury. So anyone who drafted him and then lost their season in the playoffs probably can blame Evgeny Malkin for that. Over on Facebook, a patron of ours, Teddy, was asking us to rank his top 6 keepers. Like he listed a bunch of players. We had to pick the top 6. And you and I disagreed on one of the slots as you had Malkin there and I had Alex DeBrincat, who just finished a season where he put up 41 goals and 76 points in his age 21 season for the Blackhawks. My argument was that DeBrincat is already a 40-plus goal scorer, presumably still on the rise at only 21 years of age, and someone who I'd be happy to peg for 80-plus points next season. I wouldn't be shocked to see DeBrincat go from the 76 points to 85. And again, that's maybe a summer series discussion where we could go in depth on if he earned all of those points or if maybe he got a little bit lucky to get all the way up to 76 points. But then plus DeBrincat doesn't carry the health concerns that Evgeny Malkin has. So to me, I feel like I would not only keep DeBrincat over Malkin, but I almost feel like even in a 1-year league, if I'm drafting for next year, I'd rather draft Alex DeBrincat over Evgeny Malkin just because I could be confident he's going to play, even if he doesn't get as high of a point pace. I feel like it'll be pretty close. I think it's also very possible that he matches Malkin. So yeah, I'm just curious to know if you want to make any counterpoints to what I said here. I know we talked about it a bit on Facebook, but that was an interesting conversation we could share with our friends, our listeners.
Yeah, it's an age-old question. How many points does a player need to get to be worth more than an injury-prone superstar? At what point do you want to make that trade-off of injury risk for points that you think you can count on? This is like a management and drafting philosophy question. And I'd say what someone like DeBrincat would need to get for me to want him to more than, excuse me, would need to get to be worth more to me than Malkin or worth taking before Malkin, I'd say 75, 80 points. And I could see DeBrincat approaching that next year. Elon, I can't say it's a sure thing. And again, this is a summer series or almanac discussion that DeBrincat is going to be an 80-point guy next year. I know you're hoping he is, and certainly there's room for him to grow. The thing with DeBrincat, though, is unlike Evgeny Malkin, there's always the possibility things don't work out, right? You've got Gino. He's a lock. Guys like him don't suffer from off years very often. It's a very rare occurrence, or even like having poor variance in their numbers for long enough for them to be really hurt. They're just such locks for points that it's hard to look past a Malkin for a DeBrincat who's still, like, we're not saying is a question mark, but relative to Malkin, like, who is like a 3 exclamation marks, it's not quite the same certainty level you're getting. So I can see an argument for going either way. I think if I were picking one of them for next year, I would still roll the dice and go with Malkin. And maybe that just reflects I had Malkin on my fantasy team for maybe the only time ever last season, and he stayed healthy and it worked out really well for me. So maybe this is just my own bias and experience being like, oh yeah, worked once for me, I'd do it again. But it is risky for sure. So it's all about your level of tolerance for that risk. Would you rather tolerate injury risk, or would you rather tolerate the risk of a player not continuing to grow the way you hope they will?
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But I think we should probably agree. I feel like Teddy should keep DeBrincat. Like for a keeper league, I feel like it's different than a one-year league, right? I could get behind you maybe drafting Malkin over DeBrincat for next season. But I don't know. In a keeper league, I think I'm keeping Alex DeBrincat. But anyway, that's a whole separate discussion, because I know you're going to say, oh, if it's your 6th keeper, then you're going to change it every year anyway. Then I'll counter and say, like, 40 goal scorers don't grow on trees, and maybe DeBrincat could get more. We can have that whole conversation. Let's do it on another episode. Or maybe I just did it. So maybe we're done. Last night, the Blues took out the Jets in Game 6 to advance to the next round. All 4 of St. Louis's wins were by 1 goal. So that's, I think, kind of interesting, because the games that the Jets won were by more than that. So overall, like, the series score was very close. But yeah, the Blues won all those games by 1 goal, and that was enough to take them to the next round. Brian, when you see that, does that make you think that, oh, they were lucky to win, or is like there's probably still a lot of skill in winning a 1-goal game? Like, they did still score 1 more goal than the other team. Should I put any weight in the fact that all their wins were oh man? Should I put any weight in the fact that all their wins were only 1 goal?
People like to always like throw this stat out to say a team is clutch and give their record in 1-goal games. Especially, it's like a really popular post-game show segment on like sports talk radio to talk about how a team's 1-goal game record is so bad, and like, can they just not pull it together in close games? But it ignores all kinds of other factors, like if an empty net goal might have been scored to make it a 2-goal game that we're just leaving out entirely, or if they were down 2 goals and they scored 1 with 30 seconds. Like, there's a whole lot of ways things could get to a 1-goal game. So even if there was a uniform way, though, that we could say, oh yeah, this was a 1-goal game for the whole third period or something, I still don't know. Like, I don't know. You could probably draw something from it, but I wouldn't be sure what.
Yeah, I don't know if that's good for them or bad for them, that they had all these wins in 1-goal games. The one thing we do know is Jordan Binnington started all 6 of the games in the series, not in the Leonard, Grubauer, Bishop, Bobrovsky, Frederick Anderson, 925 save percentage plus tier. Those are all goalies who had 925 save percentage or higher in the playoffs so far. But still, Binnington was decent enough, 908 save percentage. It's not actually that great, but it's not terrible. He wasn't like... Who did we talk about who did terrible? Oh, Vasilevsky. No, he didn't blow it like him. Obviously, it was enough to get St. Louis the win. This is going to be a very interesting goalie situation for next season for St. Louis in terms of, like, do I draft Jordan Binnington in a fantasy league, and how high? Because drafting a St. Louis goalie doesn't always work out. Like, generally we draft Jake Allen, and then by the middle of the season, Carter Hutton overtakes him, or this year Binnington overtakes him. So now Binnington's the starter going into next year. Maybe Jake Allen overtakes him at some point. Like, I feel like it would be hard for me to really want to depend on Binnington being my number 1 goalie going to next season. But at the same time, you know, he's doing so well and he's on this really good team. And the fact that he's getting all these playoff games makes me think it's just more and more likely that he's the starter, not only for now, but maybe even for the future. So again, like, the Blues aren't done. It'll be fun to see what Binnington does. Maybe he's going to be raising the cup, and then we're going to be higher on him in a couple of months. But at this point, is Binnington a pile guy for you, or someone who feels like one of those goalies that you're going to want to reach for?
Well, it's hard to make these calls with Bennington, who we've seen so little of, and we don't know St. Louis's plan necessarily. And part of that plan should become apparent as the Blues continue playing through the playoffs, right? Their season isn't over. So some of the story that we'll have going into next year remains to be written. But you have to think that it's Bennington's job to lose in training camp next year. And if St. Louis can continue being second half St. Louis for next season, which by all indications, it seems like it's something that's entirely possible for them, then yeah, I would want their starting goalie, Jordan Binnington. Of course, him not having a whole lot of incumbency, not having been the guy for very long means that he's on a bit of a shorter leash. But like, this is very much an off-season discussion, right? To say, well, if Binnington falters for 5 or 10 games, maybe he doesn't have that much rope and Jake Allen gets a chance, but Jake Allen is over, right? I think that's what this suggests. I think it has to be Jordan Binnington for the Blues going forward.
Yeah, at least for the playoffs. I don't know if I would say Jake Allen is over totally. And you're right, it's an offseason discussion. We'll spend a lot of time going back and forth and looking at all the numbers and coming to a decision on what we think about Jordan Binnington for next season, and then we'll be totally wrong. And so that'll be something that we could all look forward to. By the way, speaking of all these goalies, remember how last playoffs there were so many teams that played multiple goalies in the first round? I remember it was like half the teams had played their backup goalie in at least one game. Conversely, this round has actually been pretty consistent. Like we saw UC Saros come in for Rene on Wednesday, and he played really well, by the way. Maybe he should have actually come in yesterday in the 5-3 loss to Dallas, because Rene was definitely not that good in that game. Then there's Martin Jones, who's had a couple of bad games and has been pulled a couple of times, and Aaron Dell's come in and played equally as bad. But that's it. All the other goalies have played all of their games, all the starting goalies. So I think that's interesting. Anyways, that's a sidetrack. One other thing about the series, I guess I'll mention Patrick Laine. He started the series strong with goals in each of his first 3 games, but then was pointless in the final 3 games. So I guess a nice consolidation of Patrick Laine's whole season in this one series. He was good for a little bit and then totally disappeared. On the other side, huge kudos to Dustin Byfuglien. He led the Jets with 8 points in 6 games. He's definitely not done. And by the way, the defenseman who led the team for St. Louis, and also the player that led St. Louis in points was also defenseman Alex Pietrangelo, had 6 assists in his 6 games. Also really nice to see Jaden Schwartz get that clutch hat trick yesterday. Interesting, actually, the top line has been David Perron with Ryan O'Reilly and Tarasenko, and then Braden Shen has been on the second line. Shen, remember, was on the top line for most of the season, but Shen has been on the second line with Schwartz and Oscar Sundqvist. Just telling you guys some fun facts. I don't actually have any questions for you, Brian. Do you have any other takes on the Jets Blues series? I'm really excited to see what the Blues will do, and I feel bad for Brad and the other Jets fans who probably had high hopes going into the season, and it's not going to happen.
Well, this Jets Blues series is the one you started the show asking if you could brag about being right about Calgary getting bounced, even though you had it for the wrong reasons. This is my version of that. I could technically be happy about St. Louis, quote unquote, upsetting the Jets, because that's something that I said was ripe for the happening. What a great way of speaking.
Is that an upset when they had the same amount of points in the regular season?
Well, so I think that was the conversation we had when I said St. Louis over Winnipeg. But I think a lot of people thought Winnipeg had a legit chance at a cup run this year. And I still feel like the majority were saying Winnipeg. So I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about having perceived that as an upset. But anyway, so I thought the Blues were going to win. And then I looked through the numbers after the Blues did win. And this might be, of the series we've talked about so far, Elon, I think this is the series where the better team might have actually lost. Winnipeg had the edge in a lot of different offensive measures over the course of this series. They had the better save percentages. That's a defensive measure, but I'm counting it. Better expected goals rates, even on shot attempts at 5-on-5, even on power play success, even on goals scored. So like they were either keeping pace with or a little bit better than the Blues, but margins, of course, are super thin in the playoffs. And sometimes it just takes a couple of bad wraps, or in the case of Game 6, an entire game of bad wraps for the Jets for things to fall apart. And that's what happened. So like I thought Winnipeg could be quote unquote upset, but I don't think it justifies my original take. I thought St. Louis would come in and show themselves to be the better team, but Winnipeg might not have deserved the fate. Of course, they deserved it because they were garbage in Game 6 of the series, in the deciding game. So they got what they deserved in the end, but they probably were of all the teams, like of Calgary and Pittsburgh, the other teams who we were disappointed or surprised to see bounced, upset in the first round, Winnipeg doesn't fit in with that group because they had a good series.
So there you go. Jets fans and Jets players, hold your head up high. Brian says you deserve better. Though I think it was like at my Passover Seder, I checked this out, was like 6 shots after 2 periods
Yeah.
or something for the Jets. That was terrible. Let's talk about one more series. I know there's a few more series to talk about that aren't over yet. I wanted to mention quickly, like, how can we not mention that Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty, currently going into today, at least leading the playoff point race. They each had 10 points apiece in 5 games going into tonight. This game is in overtime right now. So this is very exciting. The Sharks are playing for their lives. Golden Knights trying to get to the next round to play the Colorado Avalanche. So, Brian, do you want to pick a overtime goal scorer winner right now? Who's going to score the overtime goal?
Karlsson.
Which one? Oh,
for either team.
You're going to take, we'll each pick one for each team? Okay, I'll say then Mark Stone and, I don't know, Couture. But I think it's more fun. Actually, just pick a team. Like, which team do you think is going to win this game?
I'm gonna go Vegas. Like, just having tried to follow it, like the numbers, and like I watched a little bit at the start, and just seeing what I'm seeing, it doesn't seem like San Jose has played very well.
Yeah, so, but somehow Martin Jones is keeping them in this game, which is wild. So hard to predict the playoffs, man. But okay, Mark Stone, Pacioretty, like I said, leading the playoff points race, 10 points apiece with 5 games. Paul Stastny not far behind with 8 points. Shea Theodore having a huge playoff, 6 points in 5 games. And I believe Theodore had an assist on the goal today. Yeah, it was Marchessault from William Karlsson and Shea Theodore. So Shea Theodore just fantastic if you grabbed him in your playoff fantasy league.
I did.
You did? Well, good for you, Brian. And Shea Theodore, we'll see if he advances to the next round. It seems likely. I think I'm actually going to officially go ahead. They haven't even won this round yet, but I think I'm going to now pick Vegas as my new Cup favorite. That's just what my gut tells me. They have such an amazing top 2 lines. Like, it's so insane to me how they made the Cup finals last year, lost their whole second line, and then replaced them with such a good line that I feel like now the Stastny, Pacioretty, and Mark Stone line, that's probably the top line. And then the Marchessault line is the second line, but like, whatever. Like, it's just so amazing how they are even improved over last year. They have solid D. They have a great goalie. Of course, they might not get out of round 1, like I said, but I think I like them the best right now if I had to pick one team to win the Cup. And just to be really crazy, I think I'm going to call a Vegas-Columbus final. I know you disagree with that.
Yeah, I definitely don't see the Blue Jackets making it all the way, but I did say before the playoffs started that I saw the winner of Vegas and San Jose going to the Stanley Cup Finals, and I am like the way Vegas has played, I'm feeling very good about it. And honestly, if San Jose finds a way to win this series, I feel very good about that too. I'm sticking with that prediction.
Cool. Okay. And looking at the stats, I want to blame Martin Jones before today for ruining Erik Karlsson's chances at a Cup run, as Karlsson has had a great series. He had 7 assists in the first 5 games, looking great offensively. Of course, there are those that are saying, like, I've been on Twitter, Brian, I promise I'm not just totally in a bubble here. Karlsson does deserve some of the blame. He hasn't looked so good defensively. Apparently, he was on the ice for like a big chunk of the goals against, for whatever that's worth. What's your take on Erik Karlsson at this point? Is he raising or lowering his UFA contract amount that he's going to get with his playoff play so far? Like, I wonder, what did the Sens offer him last summer? It was like $10 million a year or something, and he thought it was like a laughable offer. It was like, I'm definitely not going to take. Most people thought that the Sens kind of lowballed him. Is there anything to say now that maybe that's kind of what he's going to have to accept, just because he had an injury-riddled year and people are concerned about his defensive play? Like, what's your take right now on how you think Karlsson's going to get, what kind of contract he's going to get for next year?
I think Karlsson has gotten a bad edit this year. Remember, he was cold for like the first quarter of it. That didn't go well. And then there's the talk of his ankle never fully healing, and like he'll never have the same foot speed again. I still think he is an elite player in terms of being a difference maker on the ice, someone who can make plays, find passes, set up offensive chances in ways that few other players, if any, in the league can from the blue line. So I am still very high on Erik Karlsson, but I imagine that fantasy owners and NHL GMs aren't quite as high on him now as they were heading into last season. So we'll see. The one thing, Elon, that might end up driving his price up back to where maybe it belongs if he is being undervalued is if 2 teams get into a bidding war, right? So he could end up getting a higher salary, not because teams believe in him, but just because like they need him. They want him on their team, and they're willing to, outbid another team to do it.
Yeah, I hope that I'm going to draft Erik Karlsson in fantasy next year, I think. I hope he's going to be underrated and I could get him late, even though he burned me this year. It didn't burn me too much. I still won my Cupful League where I drafted him, but it felt like he burned me for a while. I'm thinking where I like him to sign is the New York Rangers, right? He'll easily take over on the top power play. That job will be his. There'll be no competing with Brent Burns for that primo time. They'll also get Panarin. I'm with Jade, who's about to come on the show. I want Erik Karlsson and Panarin going to the Rangers, and then them going on a cover. They'll have Kako. Now, I hope I didn't just pronounce his name. How do you pronounce this guy who's going to get drafted second overall?
I don't know.
Okay, well, people are going to be really mad at us. We'll get Cam Robinson on a later show, and we'll talk about all the prospects and talk about New Jersey and the Rangers getting the top 2 picks. Okay, anyway, yeah, I like Erik Karlsson, and I really hope that the Sharks will move forward, even though that would actually hurt me, Brian, in our patron box pool that we drafted last episode. Remember how fun that was, Brian, at the end of the last episode where we both filled out our boxes?
We had a blast.
We had a blast, and for anyone who's keeping up with it, like at home, I'm curious to know how things stand as of now. Brian, I'm in first place. How about that? My gamble of not taking Tampa Bay players, of course, who knows? Because my team is full of Boston players and Vegas players, so I could end up losing a bunch of them before the next round. It's kind of weird for me because I have to cheer for Vegas to beat the Sharks when I'd prefer Vegas to win. I mean, I'd prefer San Jose to win, and I have to cheer for the Leafs to lose. And obviously, it'll be a lot more fun in Toronto if the Leafs can get past the first round. But right now, I'm number 1 with 92 points, and then second place, Huge Long has 90 points. Third place, Not to Be Suck Again. I think there's a ... So I'm not sure if that means there's more than I'm not seeing. It's Kevin Adams. And then Dave, longtime patron, guy, cupful tier 1 champion, 4th place. So got some fun names in there, including myself. Brian, we don't have to say where you are. You took
You're
some gambles.
Fun name. You know, the fact that you brought up the playoff pool in the first place, Elon, obviously, like, you don't even need to share your positioning. You wouldn't even broach the subject if you weren't in the top 3.
Check out last year's playoff podcast episodes. We always mention who's in the top of the patron playoff pool, and you know
as quickly as possible because you're usually not. So I'm happy for you. You needed this.
I won. I won my couple division. I've had a great year in fantasy. I feel great.
Yeah, but playoff pools are not your strong suit.
Yeah, well, so far, long time. Dave didn't like my name for him. Longtime patron guy. He does some other things too. Stream scheme. Anyways, Dave, you're fine. So that's that. I will mention now, by the way, did you guys all notice we didn't do any advertisements this week? We wanted to give you the show. So here's a quick advertisement for you. Oh, actually, no. How about this? We need a sponsor because we actually don't have any advertisements lined up for the whole summer. So if anyone knows anyone or if anyone wants to promote something, let us know. Maybe we'll promote it on the show. You can email us, keepingkarlsson@gmail.com. I'm half joking, but I'm also half serious because I'd be happy to promote something. You've heard my SeatGeek ads. We have a lot of fun with them. Okay. The other thing I'll say, if you want to become a patron of Keeping Karlsson, keepingkarlsson.com/patron. We're still having fun all throughout the summer, and you could ignore all the numbers on the site. Put up any amount, and we'll give you access to all of our goods. So you throw us $1 a month, and you'll get it all, including your opportunity to submit couple rule change suggestions. So if you're a patron right now, we want your rule change suggestions. It's a pinned post on the Facebook group. And so you can either send a DM to John Reed, the great John Reed, who will be hosting that show, or you can send an email to kktakes@gmail.com. Send us your couple rule change suggestions. If you want to know what the couple rules are as of now, keepingkarlsson.com/couple, KKUPFL. Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League. I think I had that right. Anyway, okay, that's enough with that. We've got, speaking of the couple, our league that we did with a ton of patrons, 200 and, I don't know, what's 16 times 14? Whatever that is, that's how many patrons participated in the couple. We had 16 divisions, and they all got ranked, and we're going to have a lot of fun next year after promotion or relegation. But for now, we've got 2 of our 3 favorites from the Twitter account, Average Time on Ice, AVG Time on Ice. We've got Lewis and Jade here who have prepared a whole bunch of content for us, the Kakapi Awards. So how about I throw it to you, Lewis, and why don't you tell us like what you did and what we have in store. I'm ready to sit back and be a passenger now.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having us tonight. Thanks
so much for joining. Jade is here as well. Hi, Jade.
Hi, everyone.
Woo! Okay, I love it when the Average Time on Ice crew join. It feels like you guys all can't be together because we had Ben here a couple weeks ago and you 2 weren't here. And now we have you guys. It'll be fun one day to get the 3 of you, but for now, I'll take what I can get. 2/3 of AVG TOI is pretty good.
There's actually only 2 of us. It's like an illusion. We can't all be in the same place at the same time.
Is it when you 2 merge? That's when we get Ben?
Yeah.
All right, so what's our plan for the next half hour or so?
So we've put together here a list of what we think are some interesting awards. Obviously, we've got our folks who won their divisions and won their leagues, and all that is great. These are not exactly in that vein. these are some award categories that we came up with based on feedback that we got from our end of season survey. So we've got a variety of kind of goofy awards, but that help us commemorate some of the more interesting things that that happened during the course of the season.
All right. So yeah, you sent out the survey. You let all the patrons fill in. It was a long, detailed survey. Can you share like how many people did you get that filled it out?
That's confidential.
Okay. That's you have to be an elite patron level. You have to be like $100 a month patron, and then you get these types of stats. But okay, I'm ready to go. Brian, do you have anything you want to say before we get into the cuppies?
Let's do this.
Boom. So we'll just let you guys host. You could tell each other who's going to talk next, and I don't want to coordinate that.
Yeah, we're all good. Let's do it.
Boom.
All right. So we wanted to start off with an award that I think a lot of people out there will have some feels about. This is our Sympathy for the Devils Award. And this goes to patron Maddie A from the team Tilters Anonymous. And really, this is just for everybody, Maddie A especially, who drafted Taylor Hall in the first round. Obviously, he had a killer season last year. And, you know, in the games he played this year, really excellent, over a point a game. But obviously all those folks who drafted Taylor Hall this year in the first really left very depressing. Under his trades section, when he talked about things that he would have liked to see, he says that he would have traded his soul for a healthy EK65 and Taylor Hall. So sorry you weren't able to make that trade, Maddie, but it probably would have been worth it, eh?
Why does Maddie get the award of all the people who drafted Taylor Hall? What division are we talking?
Well, he was the one who submitted this as his most regrettable decision, so that's why he gets the call out. So Maddie A from Tilters Anonymous, your title is or your team name is well deserved.
That's sad, but also nice that you get a shout out on the show. And what do we think? Like, is Taylor Hall like a first round pick for next year? Like, the Devils are going to get Jack Hughes. Brian's like getting mad. Brian, we're putting on an entertaining show. I want to talk hockey with these people. You're muted anyways, which is probably good because you're yelling at me right now.
No, you misinterpreted some random. It just like flicks my finger for no reason. Like nothing happened.
Oh, okay.
I'm into it. I actually thought you would definitely take this opportunity instead of asking a Taylor Hall fantasy question to share how we won a league with injured Taylor Hall.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I thought you would take that opportunity.
Yeah, we did persevere. Even I tried to trade him actually because I thought like I want to go for it this year. Does anyone want him as a keeper for next year? And no one bit. So now we won, and we still have Taylor Hall as a keeper. Assuming Lewis or Jade tells me that I should. Like, are we still super into Taylor Hall next year as a above point per game player? Is he going to be healthy and just as awesome as he was a couple years ago?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about him.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, if anything, sorry, I was going to say, I think you were just about to say it too. I think if anything, he's going to be potentially a steal for next year.
Yeah, him and Karlsson. Like, I feel like there's going to be some really great value in players that people are ready to turn the page on, but shouldn't be, like Hall and Karlsson. So, give me them both.
Yeah, like we've been doing these votes every day on the Facebook group ever since the season ended. Dave runs our cupful rankings where we start ranking players for next season, and everyone gets a vote, and then whoever has the most votes gets ranked, and then we go on to the next player the next day. Taylor Hall, I don't even think he has a vote yet. No one's even thinking about him, and we're like 7 players in. So there you go. We'll see for next year. Sorry, Maddie, and congratulations on your award. What was the award called again?
Sympathy for the Devils.
Sad. Well, you can't have too much sympathy for them because they are going to get first overall pick. Right,
yeah, as long as we're talking about some of these high drafting players, did you see how Capo scored 7 points in his game today?
Oh, no, I didn't see that. Wow.
Oh, you were supposed to say, no, that was Jack Hughes. And then I was going to rib Jade because the Rangers fans have been trying to convince themselves that Capo is the real #1 pick and they're going to be way better off.
I like Lewis's strategy of sticking with pronouncing the first name just in case we get the last name wrong. Also, I was going to say, didn't Jack Hughes do the same thing? So I almost bit properly on that.
I should have let it dangle a second longer.
Brian's been on the ball today, I guess, while I've been traveling around for family obligations. What's next in the Kakuppies?
Good context. Love the Kakuppies. We need some new hosts, I think. Not Lewis and Jade, I mean.
Wow.
No, sorry.
Brian and I hate each other now, by the way, everybody.
That's such a bummer. Okay, the next award is the No Moves But Bold Moves Award for Wild Fab Use. And if anyone doesn't know, FAB is free agent acquisition budget. So to add players in the Cupful, you have to bid money on them. And this goes to an unknown GM in Tier 2 Ottawa. Maybe Elon knows who this is. Making no FAB moves until December, choosing to drop $50 on Domingue when Vasilevsky got hurt. Do you know
Louis
who that was?
Domingue. So wait, why don't, come on, we have to know what team this was.
Yeah, honestly, this was just my bad. I didn't look at this particular award until right now to look it up.
I could try to look it up while we go on to other ones. So someone you're saying, just to get this clear, they didn't make any ads all season long, or they didn't spend any of their $100 FAB budget. And then how much did they spend on Domingue?
$50.
Okay.
Out of a $100 budget. And Domingue, how many games in his stretch did Domingue end up playing? Like Vasilevsky was injured, right? And it was like a month.
He played every single game though. Like he was really valuable during that time.
Yeah, so let's see. I'm looking at his game log. So it looks like November 13th through to December 10th. So you got 14 games of Domingue, 11 wins, a 9-11 save percentage, which is really fantastic. But in a head-to-head league also, you want it like every, especially in the Cupful, I guess every matchup matters. So if you can get a clear edge, even if it's at the expense of something happening, even if it's something that's just going to be temporary, it's not going to help you later on in the season, you still have to do it. So good on that person. But I'm very curious to know if they would have rather had some of their money back. Also, like a big part of free agent bidding is like, how much does everybody else want this guy? And unless the next highest bidder bid 49 on Domingue, that's an overbid.
I do recall a lot of people bidding really big on Domingue in all the Cupful divisions when Vasilevsky went down for that injury, because we didn't even know how long. Like you could say now, like, oh, it was only for like whatever it was, less than a month, but it could have been for the whole season. Like the injury looked bad, if I recall. So it makes sense. Do you remember when this injury happened? That'll help me.
November 13th.
Okay, so I'm still digging.
That was Domingue's first game in, I think, after the injury.
That will do enough for me. I'm going to figure out soon who it was, and I'll tell you after you announce the next award.
Yeah, it's definitely not. We don't have this unknown GM nominated for stupidest FAB bid. It's definitely for the boldness of the move. And, right. 14 pretty solid games there. But like you said, probably not 49 for the second place bid.
I want to know the name just only because let's see where they finished. I want to know their standings position. So Elon, you're going to keep working on that.
Yeah, I know they didn't finish first. That's all I can tell you.
Why is that, Elon?
Oh, I don't know. Just I just have a hunch.
Okay.
Okay, so what do we got next?
All right, next up we have Brian Com's Swindler's Choice Award for Wildest Trade, named for our very own Brian Com.
Can you explain the context, please?
I don't remember exactly what the trade was last year, but there was some trade
Brian
that he got. It came in for a number of episodes of Brian having to sort of apologize for himself and make us all think that he wasn't such a bad guy for pulling this one off, right?
I dealt, it was Tavares, Joe Thornton, Jordan Eberle, and like there was another piece, but I think it was the second best piece that I sent, but I can't remember now. So Tavares is another pretty good player, Thornton and Eberle, and I got back Erik Karlsson, Nathan MacKinnon.
Ooh,
yeah. But like this was like right on the cusp of MacKinnon mania. So I just got in time, and Karlsson had some cold moments. But yeah, it was a pretty good trade for me.
Okay.
More than a year later, still explaining himself.
So I'm seeing here the team that did the $50 bid on Domingue was Regression Raiders, Mike's team, and he ended the season 9-12, ranked 12th in the regular season. So it didn't work out too well, but we had a very tough division, so yeah, it's not so bad.
Okay, right. So we have the swindle.
So this one actually goes to a deal that didn't go through in the end. Ultimately, it was vetoed by the powers that be, but I think it deserves credit for the madness of it all. This is a trade between Salvador Dalin, great name, and Golden Seals in Tier 4 Vetlanda. This was a trade for UC Saros and Maxime Lajoie for Marchessault and Sergachev. And this one comes with a little context too. So I guess this was all over the map because a fellow Vetlanda GM noted at the time, the thing is, Salvador Dalin tried to trade his Teravainen for my Wheeler the other day, 1-for-1. So complete opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of wild trades where you either have a clear winner or a clear loser here.
So my understanding correctly that the team that tried to trade Teravainen for Wheeler was also willing to trade Saros. Was also happy to trade Marchessault and Sergachev for Saros and Lajoie.
No, they tried to trade Teravainen for Wheeler, where you would say that would go to the Wheeler side most likely.
Yeah.
And then successfully traded Saros and Lajoie for Marchessault and Sergachev.
Okay, so this was a team that was just going fishing, looking for their patsy.
Are you sure? I understood it the way Brian did too.
Oh, maybe I am mistaken.
Well, either way,
super hosting here.
To make this like a little bit more entertaining, like no, just kidding. But like, but Marchessault wasn't like so amazing this year in the end. Like that's not even the worst trade. Like, but Saros was really valuable when he did play, and Jonathan.
Yeah, but I think this was at the time like before Teravainen really took off. Like Aho was doing well, but I don't think Teravainen was yet. I think Sergachev was useful, and like Saros just wasn't playing enough. Like I was reading back at the comments when that trade was posted today, and like nobody thought this was not even just a bad trade. Like I think it was the most overwhelming. Like everyone's saying that this was a veto.
Well, yeah.
ever.
Well, Marchessault was such a star at the end of last season. It's kind of funny. Some of these trades, when you look back on them, the ones that we like veto as like being like terrible, we try not to veto. This year, Brian, we did this veto. What was it called again?
Trade jury.
The trade jury, which is kind of actually annoying in the end because it was like a lot of work for us. Every time someone requested a veto, I had to assemble a jury. I kind of like it now, back how we had it before, where you and I just got to decide. That was nice to not have the blame on us. We didn't have that many vetoes, which was nice. But yeah, Marchessault came off a season where he had 75 points in 77 games, but he ended this season with only 59 points in 82 games. So in the end, that actually wouldn't have been I still think I'd take the Marchessault side, but it's not as crazy as it probably sounded at the time when we thought that Marchessault was a point per game player. So kind of interesting how these things shake out in the end.
Yeah. You go ahead.
Oh no, you go first, Lewis.
I was just gonna say, I think even at his peak though, Lajoie was like, the Joki Harju kind of vicinity, and that was sort of where he peaked.
Yeah, exactly. And I will re-emphasize that for the third time. That was his peak where Joki Harju might have been at some point. So yeah, Lajoie was one of those guys who was added early on. It's like, oh, without Karlsson, is he gonna really step up? Also, Jade mentioned Teravainen having a slow start, or like us not knowing exactly where he stood at the start of the season. And it's true. Like you look at his first 2 months. So from October all the way through to the beginning of December, he had 18 points in 27 games. So not the breakout star he totally became. Like that's just a 55-point pace. He'd had a couple runs. He'd had a couple cold snaps. So Teravainen for Wheeler was pretty far off at the time that was likely proposed, if it was any time before early December.
Fascinating. Yeah, it's fun maybe to go back through veto. We should go back through it. We should do a whole episode of Keeping Karlsson of vetoed trades, and if they turned out to be good, I think that'll be a great show. But how about let's move on in the cuppies? It is kind of interesting. I remember one time, Brian, there was like a 3-for-1 at the start of a season that we vetoed because it just seemed so crazy, and then I don't know. Anyway, I think Yuri Hoodler was in there. It was like after his great season, and we thought that he was being totally undervalued, and it turned out that he was actually a nobody. But I digress.
That's really funny. The next cuppy is the Turning Gold into Straw award. And this goes to Epic Kneel Time from Tier 5 William, who traded Lindholm and Duclair for Ghost and Svechnikov, thinking Ghost would come back to life and Elias Lindholm was going to get bounced from his... I feel like this is actually the opposite of what... Oh, no, sorry. I'm really doing badly tonight. I'm sorry, everyone.
You're doing great. Keep it up.
Do you want to retake that, or and we'll edit it out?
Whatever you want.
Well, now that you've asked that, I don't think we're going to leave that, like you asking Jade if she wants to edit it out in the show.
that I'll edit out. But Jade, you can either start over or you can continue from where you were.
I'll start over.
Okay.
The next cuppy is the Turning Gold into Straw award, and that goes to Epic Kneel Time and Tier 5 William, who traded Lindholm and Duclair for Ghost and Svechnikov, thinking Ghost would come back to life and Lindholm was going to get bounced from his deployment. And he also later got outbid when Arvidsson was dropped in his division. So everyone, let's just pour one out for Epic Neil time.
So wait, what was this trade again?
Elias Lindholm and Anthony Duclair for Shane Ghostbear and Svechnikov.
It's not so bad. I don't know. I guess it depends at what point in the
Ghost
season.
was like absolutely painful for the whole year.
Yeah.
And Svechnikov, I feel like, wasn't really good like till towards the end. And Lindholm was great for the whole time.
Yeah, I guess like I've said, like Lindholm's kind of left a sad taste in my mouth for his poor end to the season. So I'm already forgetting how amazing he was to own for so long. So no, you're right. Definitely Lindholm, especially if this was done early in the year. I'm sure Lindholm helped this person win like a ton of matchups because he was over a point per game for so long.
Especially, I think, with the reasoning being that certainty that Lindholm was going to be bounced from that plum deployment sooner or later.
Right, for James
especially Neal. With the name Epic Neil time for the team, I think it's pretty poetic, sort of the way that it worked out.
Oh, that's so funny. And I think James Neal was healthy scratched for at least one of the playoff games.
He was the last one.
How much longer is his contract? I don't know, the Flames. Oh well. Maybe next time. So that is a shame. Sorry, Epic Neil time. You had the right idea drafting someone who might end up on the Flames top line. You just had the wrong one. Or I guess he had the right one. He traded him away. Okay. Cool.
All right. Next up, we have the NASA just released the first photos of a black hole, and you can see Brian tilting into it award. You will not be surprised that this award is going to our very own Brian Kahm in Tier 1 Sweden.
I'm honored to have 2 awards named after me.
Yeah, you're really racking them up.
Except they're both like negative.
Well, we're here to poke fun at you. We come to bury Brian, not to praise him.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd make fun of me if they could for this couple season, but they can't.
But you're flawless.
Yeah.
We're gonna have the Elon most confident in his fantasy abilities bragging about himself award, which would probably just go to me.
something to do with humility for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe Dave Betton could be a contender for that one.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We were all ready to give you a copy for having a big asterisk on your loss and how you would never let it go if you lost in your playoff match because Karlsson was injured.
Yeah, I was ready.
So we're just going to give you a giant asterisk as your award. Okay, so we knew we'd be hearing it episode after episode.
Oh yeah, definitely. I wouldn't have shut up about that. It was like that time that it was when John Gibson had to go to the bathroom, and then Bernier cost me a matchup.
Still talking about this 3 years later.
Okay, so what did Brian win?
This is one that Brian won, and this is a special one for Brian. This was recommended by our own Dave Betton, who's going to feature again one more time. But Brian needed like a point from Johnny Hockey. He had paid a whole bunch to acquire for him in his final regular season match. It's the Sunday match. The Flames score 6 goals. Poor Johnny Hockey could not get a point, and Brian ended up in the relegation playoffs. So for having paid so much to acquire Johnny and then having him flame out quite literally for us right there at the end, Brian is tilting into this new black hole that we just got visual evidence of.
Ended up winning the relegation playoffs.
Oh, yes, the champion of the relegation playoffs.
That's I'm gonna make myself a shirt that says that relegation bracket champion 2019.
Okay, but you're not taking that out of our shared budget. That's
already did. I actually got a jacket and a banner
that all say relegation champion.
Yeah, it's all done. It's already right. The money's already out of the account.
Listen, we can tease him about it, but I would swap places with him if I could.
Oh yeah, well I guess he still is in Tier 1.
Right, Lewis. Did I knock you out, Lewis?
No, we never got to go up against each other.
Okay. Oh, but there was something with our matchup, with the matchup I was in, where I was relying on you and you were relying on me at some point.
Yeah, right at the end to try and flip our spot so we could get a pass or something. Anyway, it didn't work out.
Okay. Congrats, Brian.
Thank you. I'm honored. It was an honor just to be nominated.
It was a tough pool of contenders, but Brian just came out on top. Okay.
It takes the massive amount of tilt to keep me out of a championship spot. Like, at least we all know that. It takes
Brian,
just like an otherworldly circumstance.
I think Jade was trying to get to the next award, Brian.
Thanks, Elon. The next award is the Best Offense is No Defense award. Could go to none other than our very own, one of the favorite patrons, I think, Jeff Good, in Tier 1 Sweden, who was the first to go goalie free in the new scoring system and reeling off a long winning streak immediately after. And Jeff, this is an award near and dear to my heart, as I think I was one of the original proponents of a no goalies setup, even though I was never brave enough to do it myself. So
Yeah,
good for you, Jeff.
Congratulations, Jeff. I feel like, that's what I liked best about our couple scoring system is we gave Jeff the ability to do this without screwing his team over. So, we don't want to go as far as to say no goalies at all for next season, but I like that we have a setup where it's possible to have no goalies and not guaranteed lose. But
Elon would like Jeff to thank him on his behalf for allowing him to win this award with the scoring system setup is what.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, like, it is a strategy. Like, you can make the strategic choice to have no goalies, and Jeff was bold enough to make it and see how it would work out. For the record, Jeff finished, I think he finished second in Sweden, but he was bounced, I think, in the semifinals of the playoffs. But his team was the 30th ranked team in the entire cupful of 224 teams. So something was working out for him to rank that high in the hardest division in the top tier. So and food for thought for anyone competing next year. If we keep a similar or exactly the same scoring system, it's a strategy. It could work.
Yeah, I would say the strategy goes draft goalies, like use up those roster spots, hope that they'll be good. But if they turn out to not be good, don't just hold on to them because you feel like you need a goalie. Like if you have a goalie that never plays or that blows up your numbers every game, then you could let them go. And maybe that also means draft your goalie a little bit later, like let everyone fight over the best goalies. Then, grab your hopefully Robin Lehner's or whoever, and you might strike gold. And if not, you do have the option to just drop the goalie if they don't work out. So yeah, it's an interesting strategy. We'll see if more people follow the Jeff Good lead next year, or maybe we'll have a whole different scoring system. That will depend on what the rule change suggestions are that come into either John Reed on Facebook or kktakes@gmail.com.
And I don't want to let Jeff Good go without giving credit to his phenomenal name change right when he dropped all of his goalies, all caps, Gritty, take the net.
Nice.
Really excellent.
Yeah, that is great. John is the auction draft expert, so I'm not surprised that he made it all the way to the end there. Probably drafted a really good team, except for goalies, clearly.
All right. Next up, we did say Dave Betton would feature. He is getting an award today. It is the Cloud City Showdown Delayed Gratification Award. So this goes to Dave, Tier 1 Sweden Gamblers Fallacy, our champion. But like all great competitors, he is never fully happy, even with total victory over the massive pyramid of the cupful tiers. Great sagas, they draw us in because they don't rush conflict. They spare time for protagonists and antagonists to circle one another without always meeting head on. Think about Maximus in the arena looking at Emperor Commodus in Gladiator, or all of the missed connections of Game of Thrones. And I see Cupful kind of becoming a saga of its own. We're 4 episodes in. And one of our plot arcs this season involved 2 of our Tier 1 superstars, Brian and Dave, all beginning over a glitch in the Yahoo bidding system and $3 and Patrick Kane. But when it came to the end of the season and Brian successfully survived the relegation process, but is headed down to Tier 2 since Elon won his division and is headed to the top, like all great competitors, Dave wants to play against the best. And so he's, expressed some concern and some upsetness for missing out on his opportunity to do battle with Brian once again. So the metaphor I'll pick is the climax of Empire Strikes Back. Dave's Vader has left Brian injured and defeated, but he's dropped down whatever that big tube is, and he's getting rescued off the bottom of the city. So Dave is going to have to wait at least another full season before this rivalry saga is going to get its next chapter. But I just want to tell Dave, he doesn't need to despair. I know that he's upset about missing his opportunity to take Brian on here, but if he's patient and if he can wait, he's going to get another opportunity.
If you if he didn't go through me, it doesn't really count, right?
It's not 100% guaranteed that Brian's going to jump down to tier 2. We'll talk about it. We'll have a conversation.
It also used to be like a really, this used to be, as an Ottawa Senators fan and an Ottawa resident in the early and mid-aughts, this was like a constant troll by Leafs fans. And it was discussed ad nauseum for like weeks at a time come playoffs, especially the years where Ottawa was still qualifying while Toronto was falling off. It was, well, if Ottawa wins the cup, but doesn't beat Toronto on the way there, it's not even like a full win because their demon, their rival are the Toronto Maple Leafs. And so if they don't slay that dragon, then even a Stanley Cup doesn't really erase it, ignore the fact that they still have not struck that from the record.
I definitely recall having a conversation with my brother before, at least once, of would you rather the Sens beat the Leafs and then not win the cup, or win the cup but not beat the Leafs? And it was a tough decision because he just wanted to stop freaking losing to the Leafs every single year. But so Brian, you didn't give Dave his ultimate satisfaction. No.
Well, he wouldn't have gotten it. I would have. Anyway.
Okay.
He did get him in their one head-to-head matchup. How did you only manage to have one head-to-head matchup too?
Well, I guess there's 21 regular weeks and there's 13 opponents, so it just couldn't happen. Maybe but I did. I was one of the highest scoring teams in the entire Cupful in the championship.
All right, yes.
Just for the record,
Brian deserves to be there.
Well, maybe he'll get his Caps-like opportunity to slay the Penguins who stymied them so many times.
I just in this, I don't know Star Wars that well. Come at me or don't at me, actually. But as I'm the good guy in your analogy, right?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yes.
I mean, but you lose at the end of the movie, at least in this installment, so that's why I had to have you fit in there.
Okay. I got it. That's fine. So long as I'm still the protagonist.
Right. Well, we won't spoil
your dad in this version. So take that for what it's worth.
Man, so many spoilers.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it yet.
A movie from 1980.
It's when I see Game of Thrones comments on Twitter. I've never watched an episode, but I might one day. And it's just I still scroll past them really quick. I'm I don't want to see this.
I guarantee you.
That's how I treated The Sopranos too.
Except I have the world's worst memory, so I can't even remember a thing that someone told me yesterday, let alone a spoiler that I've read, but I still get really stressed out when I see them.
I have the world's worst memory, except for the things that I desperately try not to remember. That's the catch.
I know how Sopranos ends, and I've never watched Sopranos. I do plan to watch it one.
Don't tell us, Elon.
Okay.
We might watch it one day.
What if
I know
we
it's
just ended
controversial.
the episode that way?
What's that?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess we don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen.
Okay, let's move forward.
Can I take a pulse really quickly before we move forward? Do you guys think this is going to be considered one of the best segments we've ever done on the show? One of the worst, or somewhere in the middle? How do you think this is going so far?
Best, easily best.
Okay, great. Listeners, tweet at AVG Time on Ice and let them know if you agree or disagree.
No, only tweet at us if you agree. I don't want to hear from you if you disagree.
Okay.
You can unfollow us.
Yeah, unfollow if you disagree.
Just kidding. Don't unfollow, but please also don't tweet. Okay. 2 awards left. The penultimate. Actually, we're going to switch it up a little bit. And I'm going to present all the nominees for this award, and then we're going to have a very quick, because I'm getting really tired, discussion on who should win.
Okay.
This is the Dominic Bok Baby Award for Best Team Name. My hand-selected nominees, and I'm sorry if I didn't include you, just pretend I scrolled through really fast and missed you. Elon in order. New Team 7, #RipFanTracks. That was my hashtag that I added, but I liked New Team 7 because they're bringing back the old days. Buffle Puff, Tukopil in Spisa, Kai Ratty Kid, Mozzarella Sticks, and the aforementioned Salvador Dalí.
Yeah, Salvador Dalí, definitely a strong name. Not a strong competitor, though. Finished 223rd out of 224 cupful teams, but definitely does
So they're
better.
probably not listening to us right now.
Does better in the name rankings.
How do you even rank that, Brian?
It's remember Marcus?
Yeah.
He's got all kickupful teams ranked.
Oh yeah, this is like your like fancy. This is like the same as your expected goals or something. You're going by like total fantasy points and not actually how he did in his ranking in his playoffs, right?
Well, he was 4-17 in the regular season, and he had fewer points than a team that went 1-20.
Well, hey, I would say the team that won 4 times is the bigger winner.
Yeah, so I'm just ranking by. What do you mean? Is this your expected goal?
Yeah, it's like. You know, you have. It's like
You're like those tweets I've seen over the last week where it's like hockey is about heart and balls, and that's all that matters. It's like
no, I think hockey is about goals and saves
and balls
and balls, pucks. Like, I just think that you have to, when you say this team was the best or this team was the worst, you have to go with how we actually judge the ranking.
In the rote. Okay, so in total points scored,
yes.
Salvador Dalí scored the second lowest or fewest? Which am I supposed to say here? Number of points.
All I know is you've probably cost us a patron right now with all the ragging.
I was just gonna say, now we're getting unfollowed for sure.
On the what? Why?
Because you're ragging on Salvador Dalí for being so bad. I'm trying to say that he had 4 wins.
I was great name. Like, please come back and rename your team and get it back in the standings to a commensurate place where your name would rank you.
I don't get mozzarella sticks. Like, what's that a reference to?
I have no idea, other than like the best appetizer ever. So I just thought it was
and hockey sticks, presumably.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Oh, I liked it better when I thought it was like purely. There was no deeper meaning.
Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to ruin it for you.
So who wins, or do we have to discuss it?
I have a few nominees. Can I nominate a few of my own, of my few favorite names? So there seemed to be like this theme, like when I was looking through the names, like I liked the really mundane team names.
Like mozzarella sticks.
They really got, well, not so much mozzarella sticks, like the John Arbuckles. Like, it doesn't get much more boring than a team named the John Arbuckles. And then there's Palat on the back.
Yeah, I liked Palat on the back.
And then there's the very simple but effective Jared Sturgeon, which like, I giggled at. Phil Ketchup. Like, this is where I'm at in terms of liking team
I don't get
names.
John Arbuckles, if I'm being completely honest.
Do you know the comic strip Garfield?
Sort of.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
aware of it.
They've been running the same one for like 40 years.
Yeah.
I know there's a cat who's like upset with the world.
He's upset with Monday.
Who hates Mondays and loves lasagna, and that's the cop. So John Arbuckle is his owner.
Oh.
Can I give you guys a lasagna take?
Please.
So my mom. Okay, so some people follow Passover, right? And there's like the Jewish rules are you're not allowed to eat bread or like noodles, I guess, but you're allowed to eat these like crackers called matzah. So my mom made lasagna, but with like matzah instead of noodles. It was so okay. It was like
Did your mom listen to this show?
No, it wasn't bad.
Dabrowski.
It wasn't bad. It was just kind of weird, I guess. Like, I liked it. Like, okay, if my mom's listening, but I just it just made me think, like, sometimes I feel like some of these traditions in a religion, I feel like we're kind of going against the spirit of it. Because, like, I feel like the reason why they eat the matzah is to commemorate the fact that, like, the Israelites didn't have time to, make bread. And so that we're trying to remember that by, like, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, they also didn't have time to make lasagna. Like, I don't know, the whole thing it was so silly to me to have like Passover lasagna. I don't know, for some reason it made me laugh.
I can't wait to listen to Elon's like religion pop culture spin-off podcast.
Me and Elon are gonna have a matzah show where we're gonna do a cooking show and get all the good alternatives. All the alternatives are bad. The basics, the matzah, the horseradish, the haroset, that's all you need. That's all you should eat. It's the best.
The chocolate is good too.
There's also something that I like. My second favorite thing about Passover this year was you go through the Haggadah, like the guide with all the stories and whatever. And then at the end, there's like a list of things that happened on Passover apparently. And then one of them said that like this like city of Midian was destroyed by a loaf of bread. I feel like, you guys know this story?
No.
Can like the religious Jewish listeners let me know about this story of it's a loaf of barley bread that I'll send a screenshot of like this thing. I took a picture of it.
I am looking for. We'll share that story on a future episode of Keeping Karlsson.
I have just the source to ask. I'll get back to you.
Okay,
So-
thanks.
So can
So who
I
wins?
also, we were talking about Garfield. Can I there was a website way back, and I've located it during this chat, called Garfield minus Garfield. It still exists, Garfield minus Garfield.net. And what it does, and like this is like early internet, so like I think it was around like 2009 2010 that I came across it, and it was a website that just posted Garfield comic strips, but removed Garfield from it. And it was like this existential, like this amazing experience. Like, so it's just John Arbuckle essentially alone saying one like grumpy or cranky thing. I'm not going to spoil, like, you go check it out for itself. Like, it speaks for
Did you say
itself.
you're not going to spoil it?
Well, like, the more you talk something up and like take it, like, I want everyone to go experience it for themselves.
Okay. I'll spoil it. Here's one. The latest one on the site. There's John Arbuckle. He's staring at nothing. The next panel, he's also staring at nothing. And then the last panel, he says, "The lost your will to live phase." So,
It's so good. You just
need to tweet at Average Time on Ice. Do you prefer the Passover matzah digression or Garfield without Garfield read aloud by Elon without any visual cues?
comic strips narrated.
I could maybe, if they want to hire me, I could record the audiobook of Garfield minus Garfield. I could just let people know.
I would listen to that.
Can we add one of those really outstanding and never used KK hashtags?
Sure.
Hashtag Arbuckle versus Haggadah.
Okay. Let us know what you like better.
But there's so many different spellings of Haggadah.
Hashtag Team Arbuckle or hashtag Team Haggadah. Let us know what you like better. Is this a good podcast? Okay, so what?
Okay,
so
I'm gonna run through. So the way to my heart with a good team name is a silly pun or a music reference. So that we also had Ghostface Keller this year. We had Gritty Gritty Bang Bang. We had Smith and Jones Forever, which is I think a Silver Jews reference, and then Took a Pill in Spiza. Like
Wasn't that
Tuukka Rask and Lucas Spiza. Well, I'm just emphasizing it was on both Jade's and my list, and also one other name that we haven't mentioned yet, Stepan Urkel, which is a classic Family Matters reference.
That was Ian. Here's a hot take. I think team name talk is boring. But that's just me. All right, so who won this award?
Mozzarella sticks. Congratulations.
There was also a team in the cupful called Team One, and like that's not the default team naming system of Yahoo or Fantrax or any platform. Someone just
They're number one.
This fake generic name.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the last Cacuppy award?
So the last one is a serious one. This is our Heart of the Champion award. And you mentioned this patron before, but this is a patron who brought a lot of joy to us over the course of the season and really made things interesting. And that is Marcus O, for being just a total stats champ and giving us all this really fascinating information on his weekly table updates, with the luck factor and total ranking throughout the all the divisions of the league. It was just some really cool stuff. So Marcus is our Heart of the Champion this year. No jokes, just a lot of appreciation for what an awesome contribution he was this year.
Woo! Heart of a and that so he dethrones Mathieu, who was the Heart of the Champion last year, right?
That's true.
Well, it's not like a dethroning. It's more you only get it for one. There's term limits.
Right. It's like a lifetime achievement award.
Yeah.
It's like the Masterson Trophy. Like you don't like look back at the guy who won the Masterson Trophy last year and think, oh yeah, he really declined. Like he did not struggle as much this year.
Okay, well, way to go, Marcus.
Oh my God.
That was awesome. So
I would
we've
also
got
like to take this quick moment to just reflect upon last year during the first annual Cuppies when we announced this Heart of a Champion award, and Elon was so excited thinking it was for him. It was not.
I mean, I was a champion.
Yes, Elon.
I still am. Maybe one day I'll win Heart of a Champion. I don't know what I have to do for this, but I'll keep trying.
I'll do anything.
Not this.
All right, so how about this? We've got more team names. Okay, so if you love team names, then you're listening to the right podcast. Brian, how about this? I'm going to put an edit point here, actually. Okay, do you guys want to name teams with Brian and I?
Sure.
Brian, could you share the list of team names with in that Facebook chat?
Probably.
Okay, so while you work on that, I'll just wax poetic for a second on the show. Okay. Okay, so with that, we are through with the Kakuppies. Thank you so much, Jade and Lewis, and I assume Ben also helped with the preparation for...
Not at all.
Oh, not at all. Okay, so Jade and
Just
Lewis...
kidding.
Thank you guys so much. Average Time on Ice, like I've said before, one of my favorite, I'd say my favorite, the funniest Twitter account out there for hockey. Like, you definitely have to be following them. Average TOI, I believe. Is it AVG
No,
Time on Ice?
at
Or?
AVG Time on Ice.
That's it. AVG Time on Ice. Great follow. Thank you guys for a lot of fun content. For those of you who didn't think this was fun content, hey, we gave you a lot of good content in the first hour. So just think back to the good times when Brian and I talked about hockey players. I think it would be fun if we just keep this podcast going until the Sharks Golden Knights game. And they're in the second overtime right now. I feel like we could just keep talking about Garfield or whatever until this game ends. But in the meantime, we do have one more piece of business to get to, which is more team names, which is what everyone loves. So we didn't get to it in the last episode. So a bunch of people won their leagues or lost their leagues, and they're either happy or sad. And we want to pay tribute to both the people who fell and the people who succeeded and got to ultimate glory. So we're going to go and play some happy and sad music and tribute those team names. And Jade and Lewis, I'd love for you guys to join us in giving these tributes. And for those of you listening being like, oh my God, more team names, like, you have our permission. You could stop the podcast right now. There's no more content. There will be content if there's a goal in the Sharks Golden Knights game. I will say who scored the goal. Maybe we'll talk about something related to that, but that's the last thing. So you could definitely end it if you'd like, but if not, then why don't we cue the Happy Father's Day music, which is our saddest song that we know. And we are going to name the teams that unfortunately made it super far, but weren't able to get across the finish line and win their league championships. Let's do this.
Like several weeks ago.
Yeah, okay. So how are we doing this?
I'll go, and then, well, we need an order.
Yeah, so can you organize that?
Okay. Well, how about we'll go in order of my screen. So me, Jade, Elon, Lewis.
Great.
Right. And where do I go to get this list?
Oh my God.
Okay, I've been put
It's in the chat that I just sent it, and you have it it's in our Dropbox. You have several ways to get to it.
All right, so I just need a second. We'll find it. Okay, so not 2000.
In fact, it says you're in it.
Okay, well, so give me wait, so the losers start with... Wait, where are we going? Where am I
Jimmy
going?
the quitting.
One sec. Wait, not Quit Stalin, bro?
No.
Oh, that was a good team name.
Oh, Jimmy the Quitting Bum Whistle. Okay, got it. All right.
You really said it without...
Well, that's not for the show. That's not for the show. Okay, so I got it. So we're going Brian, Jade, Elon, Lewis.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so edit point. Let's do it.
Jimmy the quitting bum whistle.
Gotta have heart.
Looney Goons.
Point on a line A.
Hamilton henchman.
Screw you, Chegus.
The Goon Squad.
The good, the bad, the Bufflin.
The New Jersey Wizards, who were 18-4 in the regular season and then lost in the finals. Better than Tampa.
Probably had Evgeny Malkin on their roster, and he let them down.
And Taylor Hall.
The daddy.
I mean, if they had Taylor Hall, then they probably wouldn't have made it to the finals. But okay, Elias Yeaterson.
Tuke Nukem.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I like that one.
CR Krakens.
Icy dead people.
That's good. I don't get the reference. It's like icy is spelled I-C-Y.
Yeah, like
Are you joking that you don't get the reference?
It's like 3 references.
Well,
I get
definitely
that.
see one.
Like, what's I-C-Y? Like, what is that icy? Like, what is that?
like
Because they play on ice.
Oh.
Game of Thrones is extremely popular and has frozen dead people.
Oh,
And
but
then
it's
it's Sixth Sense.
yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely hockey and Sixth Sense. Like, there's not
Yeah.
even debate here.
I guess I just always assume it's going to be a player name. You know, I forget that it could just be generic hockey stuff, like mozzarella sticks might be like reference to hockey sticks. The best team name of the cupful, apparently. Okay. Mother Walrus unfortunately lost. They traded Binning. Sec. Mother Walrus unfortunately lost. They traded Binnington, who won the championship for the other team. That's the worst. You make a trade with the team that ends up beating you in the finals. Bummer.
All Dzingel ladies.
Classic.
Former episode title. Bias for Elias.
Sleepless Nights.
Flat. Oh. Is that a typo?
Yeah,
Flat.
no,
Probably.
yeah, Flatbush Hound Dogs.
Okay.
That's me.
Yeah, this
Oh,
is
okay.
Jade's team.
Flatbush Hound Dogs.
Oh, I love this one, but it's sad because they lost. Eichel 65.
They're blue because
They
lost.
They lost. Oh.
Gritty, gritty, bang, bang. The aforementioned, perhaps.
Light Flurries.
Wilson's Hit Squad. Brian, by the way, and Jade, you guys are known Tom Wilson haters. How
We
about
are.
Tom Wilson? No Pims so far in the playoffs.
Yeah, what's he doing? He's not doing his job, is he?
He's getting points.
He's not being gritty and playing with balls.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why.
Brian, what are his expected Pims?
I don't know. You can devise that stat.
Okay.
3
Do-
zillion.
Up next, we have Dubois are back in town.
Stammerhammer.
Oh, Duchesne, yeah. Sorry.
This is going well.
Well, this is supposed to be like sad and like unorganized because these teams lost. So like just like how these teams, their managers were sad and unorganized, so is our saying of their names. Mitchie and the Buds.
Destiny arrives.
So
And that's the full list of losers.
sorry everybody.
Good job, losers.
Yeah.
Better luck. But most of these people probably made it to the finals, so that's pretty hard to do. So
You
don't
know
beat
what?
yourself up.
They put themselves out there.
Yeah.
I think that deserves some respect.
Probably they were over it, and now we're like opening up these old wounds a couple weeks later for them. So sorry about that. Let's turn on our happy music now. Let's go with the ba 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 ba. And we got a big list of people that we're gonna say huge congratulations to. And let's start. Brian, why don't you go ahead, kick us off?
New West Nightmare.
TC Williams with the three-peat.
Wow, three-peat. That must be so good. I'm gonna do that next year in the couple. Father of Dragons. I guess he listed as MVPs. Connor McDavid, Rantanen, and Zibanejad helped him to the win.
McJesus and the Bum Squad with a back-to-back victory by tiebreaker.
The
Awesome.
Oilers should rename themselves. I think that makes a lot of sense. Or pick first pick. Definitely did not follow their team name's advice to if they're a champion. Good job.
Felix DeBrincat.
The North Stars.
The Vancouver Riot.
The Elmer Mighty Geese.
Vanek at the Disco.
Oh, sorry. I blew it. TC Williams.
Russian Gasilvesky.
David Abisher.
Broad Street Bullies, undefeated all season in First Dynasty League. Not against chumps.
Well,
If you
so the
gotta say
first
it.
was, let me guess, Broad Street Bullies, first ever Dynasty League, probably drafted like it was a normal league. And then all those chumps were probably drafting prospects, and Broad Street Bullies got all the star players who are maybe
Thank
in their
God
late
Bet is
20s.
not here to like discuss this point with you for the next
Preach,
like 3
Elon.
hours.
I love it.
I love that win. Great job, Broad Street Bullies. That's how you play in a Dynasty League, as someone who's never played in a Dynasty League. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Saber Squad.
Tier 1's own Gambler's Fallacy.
North Korea.
Detroit Ghouls.
JB's team. Is this JB?
No.
Oh,
but
okay.
We can pretend it is.
Okay. Someone just as great as the JB on the call.
Okay, not just as.
Okay, almost as great as the one on the call. Won the Mongoose Cup for the 5th consecutive year out of 6 years. Damn, was second in the other year. I'm surprised that everyone else hasn't quit the league.
Yeah, that's always my thought when someone's like 3-peat or 4-peat, or in this case 5-peat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone just like wants to be social. They go for beer like once a year and then forget about the pool. It's an expensive beer.
Is it me? What? What the hellebach?
Pierre Dorion Jr.
Green Bay goals.
Keep calm and Bergeron.
I love this one. Sir Buffalin Payne.
I don't get
That's
it.
a Game of Thrones. Ilan Payne is like the head chopper.
I'm like
Matthew knows what I'm talking about.
I'm not gonna get any of these Game of Thrones team name puns for years to come. Coffee and donuts.
The Ginger Kittens.
By the way, Green Bay Gulls won the Wisconsin Pro League. Throw that out there. Bring Cat. And they won the Floppy Chimps Hockey League.
5-4 fighting.
Tropic Thunder.
What's a rebuild?
Zadina is Chichu.
The Jersey Boys.
Knights of Ren.
The Mighty Golden Owls.
Duck. Nope. Puck Daddies.
Duck Patties would make a good name though.
Jagermeister, who you can follow at Young Fajita. That's
One of my
young,
favorite.
That's young with no O, the way the youth spell it these days.
One of my favorite Twitter handles of people who follow us. Very into names, clearly. Weird Wookiees.
We're a team.
Carly's Angels.
Isotopes. Classic
Connor-
Simpsons reference.
Ah, sorry. I stepped all over you there, Lewis. Connor
No worries.
McFriggin Jesus.
Suno, Monto, Senders. Parentheses. Caps are important.
Yeah, it was all in caps, by the way.
It's a very long acronym.
Yeah.
Should we try to guess what it is?
No.
Okay.
Some uncles never own my other new Taurus or
No, this is
I'm
so
done.
boring. This is so boring. Okay. No grain, no gain. And then Lewis is gone. So Brian, you go next.
the Lumberjacks.
CS _ Marcia So.
Is that like a code joke, Elon?
I guess sometimes you'll have a underscore, usually like to represent like what type of variable it is. Some people do something like that, but I'm not sure what the CS would represent. It's like an integer or something. Okay. 40 Crick.
Ogie Oglethorpe, 3P.
Dr. Hook McCracken.
Refuse to lose.
And finally, Jack to the Future is our last, gratefully, our last tribute in 2019. So if you didn't get us your team name, do something next year and then get in touch. If you're still listening, wow. Now there should be a hashtag.
Hashtag Heart of a Champion. If you made it this far in the episode, you are the true Keeping Karlsson super fan. Brian, we didn't say our team. What was our joint team name again? Bento Box.
Bento Box.
We said that a couple weeks ago.
That's a great team name.
Also, Brian, you want to just go quickly say shouldn't be here?
Shouldn't be here.
Yeah. All right. So thanks everyone for listening. Hope you like the show. Thanks again so much to Jade, Lewis, and Ben from Average Time on Ice. You definitely want to follow them on Twitter. They are killing it. Thanks to our patrons, keepingkarlsson.com/patron. If you want to join us and if you want to submit your couple rule changes, we're going to have a whole episode with a bracket, and one rule change suggestion is going to get in. So that could be your suggestion. And you can check out the Facebook group for how to submit it, or you could just send your suggestion to kktakes@gmail.com. So we're going to be back in another couple of weeks with our next episode. We'll talk about what happened in this Sharks Golden Knights game, which is still going, as well as what else happens over the next 2 weeks. This is so much fun. I love playoff hockey. I love talking to you guys. But let's end it. So let's cue the outro music. And Brian, why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
All right. This episode of Keeping Karlsson was presented by Dauber Hockey and supported by our patrons, including our newest ones who are joining us at just $1 a month. If you want to get a taste of what being a patron is like, it's a little different in the off season, but join us for the summer series. You'll get an extra bonus patron cast a month, plus access to our Facebook community. So a very hearty welcome to our newest patrons, including Braden, Tony, Mike, Chrissy, William. So happy to have you. This episode was researched with help from Dobber Hockey, Frozen Pool, Dobber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Charting Hockey, Corsica Hockey, Cap Friendly, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, Roto World, and Yahoo. And also thanks once more to the Average Time on Ice crew at AVG Time on Ice on Twitter. Follow them.
Okay. Do we sound lame? Maybe like try to push so much just for people to give us $1. It makes me sound like a really big loser, but I don't know. Okay. Great job as always, Brian. And we will catch you all in a couple of weeks for our next episode.
We're not, you know what? Don't give us $1. Fine. Do what you will.
Yeah, keep your $1.
Is that better?
I don't even want to. If you sign up as a patron, I'm gonna take it to the bank. I'm gonna get that loony. I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna throw it in your face. How about that?
That would be a really good perk for our $1 patron tier.
All right, let's end the show.
In America, it wouldn't be as effective with the bill.
I can fold it up into a lot of so it's a hard little block.
Yeah. That's it. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. Until then, keep on keeping Karlsson.
Okay. I'm gonna go watch Game of Thrones. Bye guys.
That's what you're rushing to.
You're not going to watch the last 9 minutes of this game?
I'll get a
Wow.
notification.
This guy, are we
of the
still
next-
live on YouTube? This is
Oh,
bad for the
9
brand.
minutes.
Just kidding. I'm gonna watch hockey right now, and then I'm gonna rewatch all the part of the game that I missed to catch everything.
And take notes.
Yeah, for the next episode. Okay, bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, all. Thank you.